We are live now. Welcome back, Carnival. Really happy to have you back on. Welcome everybody tuning in. My name is Pal. This is my channel, Conscientious Omnivore, and I have a guest today, Carneval. We've had one discussion already about veganism, and today we're going to focus especially on the ethics and the ethical argument for veganism, I guess. And yeah, I'm excited to have you back on. So let's just do a quick check while I'm doing that. I just want to see if anybody's in yet and get a feel for the levels. Carnival, if you want to just say a few words about yourself or maybe about your channel, just real quick, and I'll see if the levels are okay from people in the chat.
Yeah, well, what about my channel? It's meat-based propaganda, and yeah, I've just been basically debunking a lot of the misconceptions that are out there about meat, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's my channel more or less.
All right, cool. And there are a few people in. Welcome, everybody. Just if somebody could say, yeah, the volumes are good. Okay, cool, perfect. Then I think we can make a start. Thanks, Kyle, for confirming that. All right, so yeah, I guess the way I kind of wanted to start is maybe just do a quick, just like a short kind of summary of the way we view, I guess, like, either the ethical stance for or against veganism. And I know you've done several videos, Carnival, about the name the trait argument specifically. I don't want to focus exclusively on that for a couple reasons. One is I don't feel like I'm an expert in that argument. And two, I think there's other things that we can discuss as well, but I would like to discuss, your thoughts on that, because I know you focused on that on several videos. So maybe if you want to start, maybe just do like a couple minutes summary of kind of like the way you see it, and then I'll do a summary, and then we can start talking about it.
Well, I see veganism as emotional, mostly based in emotion, not a very rational movement. It's self-refuting, contradictory, and as far as name the trait is concerned, it's just a silly trick to manipulate people emotionally and mind fuck them basically into questioning their own ethical standards, basically. So veganism, I don't see much logic behind it. As a personal choice, that's fine. But pushing it, trying to make all the carnivores out there eat a plant-based diet, it's just basically illogical and insane.
Okay. So for my opening statement, I guess I would put it like this. I think that, veganism ultimately does come from a place of compassion. So I would absolutely agree with you that it is based on feelings and feelings specifically about kind of like equality and kind of like doing the right thing, but it is emotional. So I would agree with that. You can look at like health-based veganism, or people that are doing a plant-based diet for health reasons. There are good kind of like science-backed, we can disagree on that, but I think there is good science showing that a good case can be made from a health perspective. So I think I would definitely disagree with you on the logicalness of it or not. I would also disagree with you in that humans, I don't think, are carnivores. But I think for the purposes of this debate, I don't want to really focus on that, because we kind of talked about that already. And I think the ultimate thing that I would say about the way I view veganism is that it's kind of the golden rule in a nutshell, is that, like, I want to treat people and other animals the way that I would like to be treated. And by that, I would also try to avoid doing things to them that I would want, that I would want to avoid having be done to me. So that's kind of the summary of the way I see it.
But so you believe people are omnivores, right? I mean, based on your channel name.
Well, I think there's differences in kind of like physiology and behavior. So I think behaviorally we're certainly omnivores. We've been eating kind of like whatever's available for like probably the whole time we've been around. So I think behaviorally, absolutely, we're omnivores. People are going to be opportunistic and eat whatever they need to survive, just like most animals would, I think. So so in that way, I think, yes, we are omnivores. but we're certainly not carnivores. So carnivores, for example, they can produce their own vitamin C. They don't need to eat plant sources. For omnivores, they do need. Sorry, I don't know about all omnivores, but for people specifically, we can't produce our own vitamin C, and that is actually one of the things that people suppose through evolution we lost that ability, because I guess if you look back far enough, like we used to be able to make vitamin C, and there's some specific gene mutation that has been pinpointed that basically turned off our ability to make vitamin C, and we don't need it anymore because people started eating so many plants. So I think I would definitely make a strong case that we're not carnivores at the very least. And then, I don't really like getting lost in the semantics of whether we're herbivores or frugivores or omnivores. Like, even if we are biologically omnivores, I just believe that because we can live and thrive and be really healthy on a plant-based diet, and again, we can talk in general terms. So, like, I know you're going to say that for some people it doesn't work, and we can talk about that as a specific case. But I think in general, most people can thrive and do really well on a plant-based diet. And if that's the case, then that's why I would say that veganism is a question of like morals and ethics. Of, if you don't need to consume animals, then why would you? So that's my stance.
Well, none of those were scientific definition of what a carnivore is actually. Whether or not we can cherry pick, various functions of our body and compare it to cherry picked herbivores or cherry picked carnivores. Those are not the scientific definitions of what a carnivore is. Now, an omnivore, by definition, is an animal that eats both plants and animal products. Carnivore means literally eats meat. And carnivores break down into hypocarnivores, hypercarnivores.
There's
For
a third
example,
one that I can't remember, but there's one that's very little. It's like
mesocarnivore.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could eat as little as 30% of your diet in animal products and still be considered a carnivore.
Right.
What makes us carnivores is that meat is, for us, it's the most nutritionally dense food, and there are things that are present in meat that you just cannot get from the plant kingdom, such as vitamin A, B12. Iron isn't as bioavailable, and most of the nutrients in plant foods, except for vitamin C, aren't as bioavailable, thus less useful to us. But there are definitely some that you just can't get in the plant kingdom and out in nature. I know you can use chemicals to extract B12 from some algae over in the coral reef of Japan or something like that, but that's not a food that was ever available to us, and it still requires a factory and a chemical process to extract the B12, and you're getting toxins with it on top of that. So the simple fact, this is what makes us obligate carnivores, the simple fact that we can't get all of our essential nutrients from plants, but we can get all of them from meat, would make us carnivores. And we could eat 30%, anywhere from 30% to 99% meat, and we're going to do just fine.
Okay, so like I said at the beginning, I don't really want to get too stuck on this, because I think we did talk a lot about the health aspects and kind of the biology in the last one. But just quickly, I would like to respond to that. The things that you mentioned that we can't get from plants that we do get from meat. Vitamin A is something that we don't need because we can make it ourselves from beta carotene from like carrots and sweet potatoes and squash.
Yeah,
and
but the conversion.
So, the conversion is very low, but we get plenty. So I mean, show me people who are vitamin A deficient that aren't starving.
There are people who can't convert beta carotene to vitamin A.
Again, there may be some extreme cases where somebody has some kind of issue with that, but in general, that's not an issue. That's not a problem.
I was listening to some videos. Somebody was talking about this, and certain populations, very high percentage of them can't convert beta carotene, at least not to any extent. And even if you could somehow get enough vitamin A from a plant-based diet, now that we're importing all these exotic foods from all over the world, something that wasn't possible even 50 years ago, you're still not getting B12 from
Yeah, but
plants.
let me address that. So, I mean, vitamin A, the foods I listed are certainly not exotic. Sweet potatoes grow everywhere. They're literally one of the earliest, eaten like tubers, and they're all over the place. I just read a really interesting article where they were talking about how, from like Polynesian culture to all across the Americas, and then into like Asia, like it's just so widespread. It's like one of the um, like most widespread like cultivated plants. It's certainly not considered exotic or any kind of like you can grow them yourself. Like pretty much anywhere where you can grow regular potatoes, you can grow sweet potatoes. Those are not exotic. And same thing with squash. They grow pretty much everywhere.
But that's beta carotene.
Carrots.
That's not vitamin
Yeah,
A.
I know, but you said that it's because of the access to kind of like shipping and whatever. That has nothing to do with like shipping or like transporting stuff across the globe.
Sweet potatoes never grew in Europe.
Well, for hundreds of years they have.
Yeah, but in the context of 2.5 million years of our evolution,
Again,
that
that's not
is
the
that
only
is a
source. So
blink.
there's lots of sources of
But
beta
it's still
carotene
beta
in this.
carotene. It's not
Yeah,
vitamin A.
yeah. But
And there
again,
and a lot
again
of
though,
people.
it's not something that you see as an actual problem. Like there aren't
Well,
that many people with like vitamin A deficiency. It's just very rare. Usually, the people who do have it are not getting enough calories. Like period. It's like a typical kind of problem is they're not eating enough like food, and then they
yeah,
have vitamin A
but
deficiency.
the point I was making is that meat contains many more nutrients that are very much bioavailable to us, which makes us carnivores because, yeah, we could convert um, beta carotenes, some of us, not all of us, to vitamin A, but, you know, a lot of us can't do that. And just the simple fact that we could get retinol from meat should tell you something about who we really are physiologically. And then there's also B12. And as
Yeah.
far as
So
what
I
you
would.
said about,
Yeah.
and as far as what, let me just answer one question, one point you made about the studies. As far as what you said about the vegan diet being shown to be helpful scientifically, I am not aware of any multi-generational, long-term studies on hundreds of thousands of people that are vegan. So, and what most vegans seem to rely on is studies on vegetarians, which it's silly because we're not talking about vegetarians. Vegetarians eat animal products. We're talking about vegans, and those studies, as far as I'm concerned, don't exist. And you absolutely need multi-generational studies because sometimes our genes have been known to mutate because of eating plants, certain kinds of plants. And these certain problems that occur because of gene mutations will not show up necessarily in you or your son, but sometimes it'll take 2 or 3 generations between these problems start showing up. Like a woman, for example, that's pregnant and eating a vegan diet, and she has a daughter, she's carrying a daughter in her uterus. That daughter, by the time she's like the woman is halfway through the pregnancy, has um, all of her eggs are already developed. All the eggs she will ever release are already in that fetus. So whatever the mother is eating and however it's affecting it, it's also affecting her grandchildren potentially. So until until we have multi-generational, multiracial, long-term studies of strictly vegans, hundreds of thousands of vegans, you cannot say that the vegan diet has been proved to be a healthful diet. That's just
Yeah,
insane.
that's fine. I didn't say that it was. So I think if you watch back later, like I didn't say that it was proven. I said there's increasing amounts of evidence that suggests it is. So that's as far as I'll go to say that. There are people who are multi-generational vegan. I know of at least some online that I've seen who are third generation vegan. I've seen lots of people who are second generation vegan, so they've been vegan all their lives. I think I'm comfortable in assuming that it is fine. But like I said, I think we should focus on the ethics of it. Let's, for the sake of just a discussion, let's say that that I can show you like that. Yes, it's healthy. I mean, there's like millions of people who are vegan. There's millions of people who have been vegan for many years. Let's say I've been vegan for almost 3 years. And you can look at individual things. I know that it's not as good as like hundreds of people, hundreds of thousands of people like studies, But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that somebody can be healthy as a vegan, and if that is the case, so like for me,
Mhm.
I'm healthy. I've never felt better. 3 years in, I've seen improvements. So not even just like steady. I've actually seen my health go up. For somebody like me, like in your view, is there kind of any moral argument for me to continue to be vegan? Or do you think that even if I know that I'm perfectly healthy and in fact have better health, that I could just choose because I like the taste of bacon? Like, do you see that that has some kind of like moral problem? Like, is that unethical anyway?
Do you not like the taste of cherries?
I like cherries, yeah.
Yeah, well then let's not trivialize the most nutritionally dense foods on the planet as simply taste pleasure. I don't think that's fair.
No, no,
And
I'm not saying that. I think you're misunderstanding me. I'm just simply asking you a question. Like, for someone like me, I know that I'm healthy. I know that I've gotten actually healthier. Do you think there's any kind of like moral problem for me if I chose to start eating animal products again?
well, what you do, I believe in, personal freedom. What you do is completely up to you, and I would never tell you what you should or shouldn't do. The problem with veganism is that it tries to rule other people's lives without having met the burden of proof that it's a healthful diet. Now, all those cases you mentioned, that's all anecdotal,
Right.
and all those people are lying, in my opinion. Now, as far as,
Wait, who's
and they're
lying? Sorry.
probably those multi-generational vegans, they're probably taking all kinds of supplements and, probably cheating, eating meat when no one's looking.
Okay,
So
but
that's
you're
all
just saying
anecdotal.
burden of proof. I mean, like you're accusing them of lying. Like, what kind of proof do you have of that?
I don't, but, you know, I don't need it. It's just my opinion. But
Okay.
that's what I'm saying is that that's anecdotal, right? It's not like we have monitored these people. It's not like we know what they really eat. It's not like they subjected themselves to a rigorous scientific experiment. They just say that that's what they do, and that's fine. First of all, it's all anecdotal, so it doesn't really matter. And if you want to talk about anecdotes, and I don't know about these millions of healthy vegans out there. I would contest that. But if you do want to talk about anecdotes, how do you ignore the fact that there are thousands of testimonials of vegans getting sick and almost dying even? Like, how do you just ignore that? I don't understand that.
Yeah,
If you do want
I
to talk
don't
about
ignore that.
anecdotes,
Yeah, yeah, no, I don't ignore that. I think those are legitimate people who have gotten sick. And in all the cases I've seen so far, without exception, they are all doing kind of crazy, extreme versions of vegan diets. And I think that comes to a core problem that people don't really see, is that vegan is a philosophy. It's a way of thinking of non exploitation, and what people think is that there is a vegan diet. There isn't a vegan diet, just as much as there isn't a omnivorous diet or a carnivorous diet. You can get all sorts of things that you could be doing wrong in any one of those diets. And what happens is, when people say that, oh, that person did a vegan diet wrong, they get all sorts of offended, because they say, oh, well, it's like, like how can it be so difficult to do it right? Well, it's difficult to do any diet right. You have several videos, Carnival, where you say like the American population is doing a plant-based diet, and I of course will tell you, yeah, if they're getting the majority of their calories from plant-based sources, but they're all like heavily processed and chemical laden and all this other stuff, I'm going to say they're doing it wrong. It's the same thing with like people who've criticized the people who just got scurvy from eating nothing but meat, and then some people will come back from the carnivore community and say, oh, but they should have been eating liver, or they should have been eating this internal organ or that internal organ, and then they wouldn't have gotten scurvy. It's like, you're doing it wrong is a valid critique.
who's gotten scurvy from eating nothing but meat?
Several people online that I've followed, including Meteor Man. He's here on YouTube. He did a video where he says that he got scurvy. Later on, he changed. He put up another video saying that he didn't have scurvy, and he thinks
So
he
he
had
didn't
something
have
else.
scurvy.
Well, that's what he says, but he did do a video where he says he got scurvy, and there's blog
Okay,
posts of
so
people
so
who are
when he
doing the
says
carnivore diet, and they've
when he
said that they
says
got scurvy.
when he says he got scurvy, his word is bond. But when he says he didn't get scurvy, you don't believe him. So sounds like you're cherry picking
There's
what he says.
I'm not cherry picking anything. There's other people. I mean, if it, like, give me 1 second, I'll just go on Google right here and just say carnivore dieter gets scurvy, and let's see what comes up. Because I mean, I know I've read several blog posts from people, um, and people have posted that yes, they've gotten
But that's all
scurvy.
anecdotal. That's all anecdotal.
Well,
I don't
again,
accept
no.
anecdotal stuff.
So it doesn't have to be accepted. I'm just saying, like, if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, don't eat a carnivore diet because you're going to get scurvy," what are you going to tell them? You're doing it wrong.
So how come I didn't get scurvy?
Are you eating any other like plants? Are you eating any plants? You eat
I
some
eat
plants.
some plants once in a while, yeah.
Yeah, so you're probably getting enough vitamin C from that.
No, I'm not because it takes about a month for scurvy to show up, and I went 2 months without eating any plants, and I didn't get scurvy.
Okay, look, here's an article. I'm going to ping it in the chat so everybody can see it.
Yeah, it's anecdotal. I'm not interested in anecdotals because when it comes to people who are getting sick on the vegan diet, you reject that and you judge their diet. But when you're pointing out a third generation vegan and I start judging them saying that, well, they didn't do veganism right because they ate meat, in my opinion, then that's not valid. So let's not
The
worry about it.
I'm just saying, like, um, I think you've misunderstood what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm saying is that you're claiming that your diet is healthier than a vegan diet, okay? And what I'm saying is, if somebody were to say
No,
to you,
I'm not claiming that. I'm not
no,
claiming that. I'm
okay,
saying veganism has not met the burden of proof that it's a healthy diet, period. I'm not saying that my diet is healthier than veganism. All I'm saying is that veganism has improved itself, whereas um,
and why
a
doesn't your
diet,
diet have to prove itself?
it has proved itself for 2.5 million years.
I don't think that for 2.5 million years people have been eating mostly meat.
But
That's
that's not an
extremely
opinion. This is science. It's not
no,
an
no,
opinion.
but mostly. I mean, you said you eat
Yeah,
only just some plants, some small amount. You eat mostly meat. You really think like for
I'm
most of
saying
like
what
human
I'm
history,
saying.
people have been eating
No, no,
mostly
no, no,
meat?
no, 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 no. Yeah, they have. What I'm saying is that there are hypocarnivores, mesocarnivores, and hypercarnivores. They're all carnivores and they eat meat to a certain degree, but they're all carnivores. So, do people closer to the tropics, did they eat more fruit than meat? Perhaps, but they always ate meat.
Okay,
People
that's
in
fine. Yep.
people in Norway,
Mhm.
they ate fruit like 1 month out of the year, and other than that, they didn't have any plants. So of course they ate meat.
Okay, so
Like
that's your
this isn't
position. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But so I mean, you're living in Ecuador. Like, do you think the people in Ecuador ate 90 whatever percent meat?
they ate a ton of meat and they still do.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they've gotten a lot of Western foods, their health is deteriorating. They're getting all fat, and they're getting all these modern diseases. But
Yeah.
prior to prior to the Western foods arriving, I mean, shit, they ate donkeys, they ate tapirs, they would hunt for like these rat-like creatures. They all had chickens, cows, goats. They ate a ton of meat.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, all I'm saying is that meat has always been, to whatever degree it's debatable, but meat has always been a part of our diet and it's proved to work. We know this. This isn't even debatable.
Yeah, that's not what I'm
Now,
debating. I'm answering your question, which you asked. Why do I discount the thousands of ex-vegan stories about how they got sick? And what I'm saying is that they were doing it wrong, and they
but you
were
don't know
generally.
that.
Well, I do know that based on their own like stories, what they say.
You've read thousands of stories.
Well, all the ones that I said, like without exception, everyone that I've watched the video of or read a blog post of, they literally were all doing crazy stuff. They were under eating. They were like not getting enough calories, like pretty much all of them, and similar kinds of things. That's like the three quarters of
That's
the
just
ones that
your
I've seen.
opinion. That's just your
Um,
opinion.
no, it's not really an opinion when you see like people saying they're losing weight and all this kind of stuff. If you're losing weight, you're not eating enough calories. It's not an opinion.
No, this whole calories in and out myth has been long debunked. That's nonsense. Now,
I don't think that's very unscientific, like, or very, sorry, I don't think that's very scientific to say that that's debunked. If you're
that's fine.
losing weight, you're not getting enough calories.
Or maybe you're not getting enough protein.
Um,
Maybe you're not getting enough fat.
Yeah, you're
Because
not getting enough of everything. All plants have all the three macronutrients, and if you're not getting enough of them, you're going to be losing weight.
yeah, but regardless, there are thousands of people who fail on the vegan diet, and you have not monitored what they ate. You don't know what they ate, and they just keep failing. And
Okay, but again,
84%,
those.
84% of vegetarians and vegans go back to eating meat. So once again, what I'm saying is that we don't have enough long-term vegans that were studied rigorously to be able to say that the vegan diet works for everybody. Now, I do admit that people who eat a crappy diet could go vegan and feel a lot better, and they'll feel very, very good for a few years. But once again, we don't have any multi-generational studies whereas when it comes to meat being part of our diet, we know it works. That's not even disputable. We know it works.
Well, I would again argue because, like you said, you don't want to hear about anecdotes, but the thousands of people that are saying they're ex-vegans, they are anecdotes. They all are like one individual thing. They're not in a study. They're not in any kind of like scientifically monitored thing. You're the one who's saying like I don't know what they ate, and that's absolutely correct. And to that, you can compare the millions and millions of people that are dying every year from heart disease and from all sorts of other things, and they are eating meat. So
Heart
there
disease is
is.
caused by inflammation.
Okay,
Heart
but
disease
listen,
is caused by eating carbohydrates.
we don't even have to get into the causes because I really do want to focus on the ethics. What I'm saying is that it's proof that you can't just say that the vegan diet, because there is no one vegan diet. So that's the first thing, and the second of all is it's not like the vegan diet is causing these people ill health. Just like the fact that there is meat in what most people eat in the U.S., for example, they do eat meat, they do eat dairy, eggs, whatever. That is still not enough to guarantee good health, as we
Because
see.
they eat mostly plants, right? They eat mostly
Again,
plants.
that's your assertion. That's not
Do
my
they
assertion.
wait? Are you saying they don't eat mostly plants?
Look, I know you've got the video about the USDA like pyramid thing, the food pyramid. Let's do that in another debate because I really do want to focus on the ethics. All I'm saying is this: I want to go back to the question that I asked you before. Somebody like me, I was healthy before. I never had any health problems in my whole life. I was fit, active. I've been a runner for I don't know when did I start running? 2003, 2004. I've been running for 14 years, doing long distances, half marathons, marathon, recently ultra marathon, relay race. I've been healthy my whole life, never had any problems, and yet 3 years ago, going vegan, almost 3 years ago, I've seen improvements to my health. So somebody like me, clearly there's no detriment for me whatsoever from doing what I'm doing. Um, do you think that there is some kind of like moral problem with me deciding to go and kill another living being just because I like the taste?
I don't care what you do. It's whatever you do in your personal life is not a question of morality. It's or ethics rather. That's your own personal morality. Like what you want to do, I respect that. You go on ahead and do that. I would only add that 3 years isn't nearly enough to be able to say whether it's good for you or not, and it's definitely not long enough to say how good it's going to be for your grandchildren. And
Okay, let me ask
I
another
just think,
question.
hold on,
Yeah.
and I just think that it's very hard to get to the ethics when you can't even prove, and this is part and parcel of the ethical debate. If you can't prove, and you have to be able to prove that the vegan diet is viable through many generations, then you can't tell people to eat a vegan diet. It's not moral for you to say that they have to eat a vegan diet when that hasn't been shown to be a healthful diet for everybody.
Yeah.
As far as
So
what you do personally, I have no problem with what you do.
okay, so a couple of things there. One is that I firmly believe that in the future we will have that burden of proof met. So I think we will have. It'll probably take, like you said, another couple generations, but I think there will be, 50, 100 years from now, there will be those kind of scientific, research available to show that it is healthy and it is good for you through multi-generational, aspects. So I think that will be met. But again, like that's fine. What I'm saying is let's just assume that you can be healthy. do you understand kind of why people are saying that if you don't need it, if it really truly is? So again, you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to admit that that is the case. Don't admit that it's the case. I'm just saying, for the purposes of this discussion, just assume that yes, you can be healthy. Do you see that there is some kind of like moral imperative to not then kill an animal if you don't need to kill it?
Okay, so you want to have a mock debate? That's fine. We could have a mock debate.
It's not a mock debate. I'm just genuinely interested in kind of your thoughts on like when is it okay to kill an animal and when is it not? Because
Well,
for me, I
but
agree. Like for the
we are assuming here
live.
something, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. I'm just saying for the purposes of the argument, like
Right. So it's a mock debate because you have met the burden of proof. So it's a mock debate. And I'm fine with having a mock debate as long as we both agree that it's just a mock debate, that it's not,
yeah, I'm
you
not
know,
asking you to. No, see, I think you're misunderstanding me. Let me try phrasing my question in a different way. Okay, so if I understand you right, like, would it be correct to say that you're kind of like a libertarian at heart? Like, you have libertarian views. Like, it's like you can do whatever you want as long as you don't like impinge on me. Is that kind of a good summary? Or
I'm libertarian on many issues, but not everything. Yeah, I would say I'm libertarian on many issues, but I don't adhere to any one political view because,
yeah, yeah, no, I'm not talking about political view. It's more like a philosophical kind of like thing, like how you view liberty.
yeah, as long as you don't impinge on anybody else's liberty, yeah, then you're
Okay.
not doing anything wrong.
Okay, so like you would be okay with somebody say like doing drugs if they're not harming anybody else. They're just getting high like in their comfort of their own home.
Well, if that's the case, but it's kind of a complicated issue because the drug trade, uh, does harm a lot of people. So it's a complicated issue. But if there were no, you know, secondhand victims, if you will, then
Right,
yeah,
right, right. Yeah.
then
Okay, cool. I'm not trying to like instigate you in any way because I actually am pretty libertarian myself, and my view on drugs is that they should be like legalized because it would get rid of the black market trade and get rid of a lot of these kind of like secondary problems, like you said, like gangs and stuff and violence. Because if you could just go to the store like around the corner and just buy whatever you want, then I think there wouldn't really be an issue. And I think a lot of people get mad at that when they say like, "Oh, what if somebody gets high and gets in their car and runs somebody over?" Well, what if they get drunk and get in their car and run somebody over? It's the same thing. You punish the crime, which is the like driving while intoxicated or under the influence of some substance, not the actual use of the substance. If you're only harming yourself. So again, the harm I think is when you've lost control of your faculties and then you do harm to somebody else. Would you agree with
I
that?
would, yeah, I would only add to that there are some drugs that objectively turn you into a monster where you just want to kill people. So those drugs, obviously, I wouldn't agree with being legal. There are drugs like that, like what they have in the Philippines. I think it's called shabu or something like that. It turns people into homicidal maniacs. It makes them crazy. So stuff like that, which is a rarity, I wouldn't support
Mhm.
being legal at all
Okay,
because
that
there's
sounds
just,
horrible. I've never heard of that drug, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about like somebody wants to smoke dope and sitting
yeah,
around and
no,
listen to
no
music and whatever.
problem.
Like, yeah, yeah, I got no problems either. So my thing is the reason I bring this up is that I don't think there's a problem because there's no victim. You're not harming anybody by just doing that yourself. So like if somebody wants to smoke cigarettes, like I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's good for you. I think it hurts your lungs. But like if you want to do it, like as long as you're not like blowing the smoke into somebody else's face, like I don't really have a problem with it. I wouldn't outlaw it. And I view kind of the question of the morality of veganism the same way. The problem there is that there is a victim in the choice to eat animals. The animal is the victim. So if you that's kind of what I'm getting at is that even like as a libertarian, like like mindset, like do you see that that is a different situation than the like I'm just choosing to like smoke at home or whatever?
Well, this is how I see it. It's either the animal is going to be consumed or I'm going to be a victim. So that's how I see it. If I don't eat animals, I'm going to get sick, weak, and I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to live a long, healthful life. So that's how I see it.
Okay, and I know this is difficult because like you just absolutely are convinced that you can't be healthy on a vegan diet, but
Oh, I
generally,
know. I know
well,
I can't.
you don't really know that because you said you tried being a vegetarian for a while, but you never tried a vegan diet, and you certainly didn't try like multiple different kind of versions of it. So you don't know that you can't be. You're just convinced that you can't be.
No, I know I can't because if I don't eat meat, I feel weak. I get bloated. I have brain fog. I mean, I have all kinds of inflammation everywhere. My joints ache. I had all kinds of knee problems when I was still eating plants. So I know I can't do well on a vegan diet. And when I listen to all these people's testimonials and I hear them having the same problems that I had, that further reaffirms my conviction. I know I can't. Um, you know, but that's me and a lot of people like me because once again, we're carnivores and there are certain nutrients that we just can't get from plants, and this is just a fact. It's just a fact.
Mm. If that were true, then I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I mean, how long do you think it takes, uh, somebody like me to become deficient? If my health has improved, why would it suddenly take a downturn? And you can't say like, oh, it's because I was unhealthy before and I've cut out processed food. I was eating very healthy. Literally, the only difference in my diet now is that instead of eating meat and vegetables and fruits, I replace the calories from the meat with other like more plants. So instead of just eating like potatoes as a side dish, I'll have like the whole plate full of potatoes plus some other stuff, as opposed to like before it was like this much meat and that much potatoes and that much veggies. Now it's like just chop off the meat from the plate and just expand everything else.
But we're not all the same.
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
and it'll take you many years to deplete all the vitamin stores in your fat, in your bone marrow, in your bones, you know.
but I
Do you,
mean,
do
what
you
about
supplement? Do you supplement?
I take vitamin B12. That's the only thing I take.
Okay, well then that's not a diet, is it? Supplement is not part of the diet. So it's not
Well,
a healthy
that
diet
that
because
actually
you
is
take
something that
drugs.
again, that's something that I wanted to address too. But I keep wanting to get back to the ethics. But like vitamin B12 is produced by bacteria in the soil, and
So
it's not a like weird chemical or anything like that. The reason why the animals have it is because they're either getting some soil ingested when they're eating their like plants from the ground, or they're getting it from groundwater or some kind of like water source like a pond or something that has vitamin B12 from the ground. And it's presumed that you could probably get enough vitamin B12 just from drinking pond water. The reason why we don't do it is because you could get other pathogens and get sick. So you don't want to do that, but that's where you filter our water and treat it and all this kind of stuff. And if you really wanted to go like down that route, I suppose you could just consume it from like unwashed veggies or whatever. But I just want to play it safe because I don't know that I would get enough from just eating the stuff out of my garden, without
well,
washing
there's
it.
a lot of presumptions and assumptions on your part. Now, you do take a B12 supplement, so let's just stick to the facts.
Yeah.
And we're not dirt eaters. We just don't do that.
Well, a
Now,
cow is not a dirt
as
eater either, but they probably get enough B12 from picking up enough dirt from the ground. And in factory
they
farms,
are
they don't even
they
get
are
that, and
dirt
that's why they're
eaters.
supplemented. So something close to
Yeah,
ninety
but we're
percent of the
not talking
vitamin
about
B12.
factory farms. I don't
Well, I
understand why
think
vegans always go back to the factory
no, no,
farm.
no.
I
I
don't like
think
factory. Hold on one
well, the
second.
reason why they
I
go
don't
to that
like
is because
factory farming. I
yeah,
don't
but
agree with
Carnival,
factory farming. So why
you're
don't we
you're
just
very
stop
much in the
talking?
minority. So like 90% of the people who consume meat get it from factory farmed sources. That's why vegans are always talking about it because that's what the majority of people do. So the fact that you don't do that puts you in the very, very small minority of people who don't do that.
Yeah, but an argument against factory farming is not a pro-vegan argument. The biggest non sequitur of the vegan movement is this whole factory farm non sequitur. Whatever happens in the factory farm is wrong. That meat is a huge detriment to people who believe meat is healthful, who know meat is healthful, because that meat is full of chemicals, that meat is full of crap. You know, it's not nutritionally as complete as grass-fed beef, and it's just a non sequitur. It has nothing to do with veganism, and I disagree with factory farms. So I would appreciate if we didn't go that route ever again, because being
We don't
anti,
have to. Yeah, I'm not trying to paint you in that. I know in the last debate we talked about this too. So I'm not
yeah, but
saying that.
it's
But
not a
I'm saying
pro-vegan argument. What I'm
it's
saying is
not.
not a
It's not.
pro-vegan argument.
It's
Okay, well
not.
then just leave it
But
off
what
the
I'm
table.
saying, no. What I'm saying is that the cow that is able to forage like outside, free range, like truly free range, and not just like BS marketing tactics, which a lot of people use, because they'll sometimes pasture feed an animal and then feed it like corn and soy.
Grain
And
finish.
grain finished. So, but let's say like a real, true, grass fed animal, they probably are getting the B12 from the little bits of like dirt that's left on the grass that they're munching. So,
My goats eat
you said
dirt.
people,
My goats
yeah, that's
literally
fine.
eat dirt.
But you said people are not meant to eat dirt. Well, the cows aren't meant to eat dirt either, but they're getting enough B12 from eating the like basically like the soil that's on the
But you're
grass
not.
and plants. Well, I'm
But
not,
you're
but
not.
there's actually a team of scientists who just showed that you can reliably get B12 from, I think it's like watercress or something. I can send you the link after. I don't have it in front of me, but they basically demonstrated that you could get like enough B12 reliably from the soil bacteria through like some watercress plant. I think it was watercress. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll send you the link. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, you want to be totally natural, no chemicals, no like whatever you said, like Japan, whatever algae, like you just literally plant some watercress and you just pull that up and eat that and wash off the dirt. It's in the plant itself and it's bioavailable B12. You do not need to get it from animals.
Is that a pro-vegan website?
No, it's not a website. It's a scientific research that was done at a university.
Who funded it?
I don't know. I mean, I can look it up if you want. I'll go dig through my Twitter thing
Well,
because I shared it there. But
the point I want to make about that is that, and I don't want to talk about studies because we've already went down that quagmire, but the point I want to make is that whenever I bring up a study, you try to pick it apart by saying who funded it, but whenever you bring up a study and it agrees with your ideology, you don't even know who funded it. Why
um,
don't you
no.
put the study, hold on. Why
Yeah,
don't you put the
you're
studies that,
misrepresenting me. I don't have a problem with any funding of the study because it could be funded by the Egg Board doesn't mean that it's inherently wrong. My problem with the studies that I've seen funded by the Egg Board is that they are like based on like incorrect um, like science that's been proven already for 30, 40, 50 years back that you cannot show in a, what do you call it? Cross-sectional observational study, you can't show a significant relationship between saturated fat intake and your blood serum cholesterol level. And they've known this for 50 years. That type of study is incapable of showing that difference. And what they will do is they will do another study trying to make it look like a legitimate study to prove that there is no statistically significant difference. And we already know this. So that's what I'm saying is misleading. It's not,
yeah,
I don't have a
what they
problem with
already
it being
knew.
funded by the Egg Board. I have a problem with them funding a study that has already been known. The outcome of that study has already been known through, hundreds and
Yeah,
hundreds
but
of
what I'm
cases.
saying, pal, what I'm saying is that you cherry pick studies that agree with your ideology, and you always try to debunk the studies that don't agree with your ideology. For example, you're still pushing this myth that saturated fat causes heart disease when it was already known in the 30s that it was carbohydrates that were linked to heart disease. In the 30s, they already knew this. And it took forever to debunk this nonsense, but you're still pushing it. So I don't want to discuss any studies or science with you because your background is very unscientific and you don't look at both sides of the debate. You just cherry pick what agrees with you. So I don't even want to go that route because you have some archaic beliefs still, and some of this new stuff that you're saying that there's B12 in watercress. No, that comes from vegan websites. That's all bullshit. I'm not even like interested in that stuff. No disrespect, bro, but it's just
Yeah,
no, no,
listen,
no, no, no.
I've said
Dr.
about
Gregor, Dr.
five.
Gregor is a
I've said about
fraud.
5 times already
McDougal
that
is a
like I don't
fraud.
want to talk about the health aspects, but you're the one who keeps bringing it back because you keep saying that you can't get past like even just for the sake of argument this idea that you can be healthy as a vegan. All I'm saying is
No, I
just
can. I can
suppose.
get past it as
But then
long
why
as
are
you
you
agree
keeping
we're
bringing
having
it?
a mock debate. I just want
I
you to
don't know what you
concede that
mean by
we're
mock debate. I don't know what that means.
well, it means that we're assuming that you can be healthy when that hasn't been proved. So it's not really, it's going to be an exercise in philosophy more so than anything that applies
Well,
to the real
yeah, and
world.
I
Mock
think that's,
debate.
yeah, okay, but that is the point. I mean, that like veganism is a philosophy. Like it's a philosophy that
It's
says,
an ideology. It's not a philosophy.
okay, what's the difference between an ideology and a philosophy?
Philosophy seeks to find the truth. A philosopher, in your case, would do a meta-analysis of all the studies on heart disease, and they would try to draw their conclusions from that. An ideologue has a predetermined worldview and looks at only the studies that agrees with him, and he uses that to push his confirmation bias. Moreover, an ideologue wants everybody to submit to their will, versus a philosopher is just out there to find the truth. So an ideology tries to push normative beliefs onto a larger population, basically. So it's a way of ruling people's lives. Like,
Yeah, I
you know,
certainly don't fall into that. And if you watch any of my videos, you'll know, like, without a doubt, that I do not fall into that camp. All I'm simply trying to do is share my story and let people know the information that I've found and the careful consideration that I've done of both sides, because you have to realize 37 years of my life, I was saying the same things as you are. Well, I guess not the whole 37 years, but all of my adult life up until 3 years ago, I was saying the same stuff that you are saying. And if it weren't but for the grace of luck or whatever, like I would be pretty much kind of doing what you're doing, because I was initially, when I kind of realized the evils and horrors of factory farming, my initial thought was like I would just get a farm and raise my own chickens and ducks and goats and what have you, and just eat those. So I was like, this far away from doing what you're doing. And it's not a question of ideology. I've really looked at both sides of things, and this is what I have come to draw my conclusions.
you've done a meta-analysis of the link between saturated fat and heart disease.
Yes, I've read many meta analysis of that question, and
No,
to
have
the
you read
best
the
of my
studies
understanding,
yourself? Or you just read an
I've
abstract on a web page?
no, I've read many complete studies. I've read many complete individual studies, and I've read many complete meta-analysis studies.
So
I mean,
you
there's different
found a lot of
meta-analysis.
studies that
There isn't
debunk
one
this link.
meta-analysis. What's your question?
So you found a lot of studies that say that it's not saturated fat, but inflammation that causes heart disease. You found a lot of those studies, right?
Yes, and
And they're all
basically,
wrong, and the ones that agree with your ideology are right.
they haven't been convincing to me, and we can talk about
Because you
them.
have an
Again,
ideology.
no, because I've looked through them, and none of them have been convincing. But you keep saying you don't want to talk about studies, but then you go back to studies. Like here's the thing that I want to ask you. Like, would you agree? Like, and I would guess you would, but I don't know. I just want to confirm. Like, to unnecessarily harm an animal is wrong.
Well, it's necessary to eat meat.
Okay, but that's not my question. I just said, in your own view, something that's unnecessary.
Well, if something is unnecessary, then we probably shouldn't do it unless it just like gives us pleasure, I guess.
But is that enough reason? So, like, is bullfighting good?
I don't really have an opinion on bullfighting. I don't like it, to be honest with you, but I don't really have an opinion on that. But let me ask you a question. Why do you value animals over people?
I don't value animals over people.
So why do you have a channel supporting animal welfare and not, and like an anti-war channel, or talking about all the kids that die in the Middle East, like thousands of children dying in the Middle East every year? Why don't you talk about that?
If you look at my videos, you'll see that one of the reasons why I'm an expat of the United States is because I don't support their military interventions all around the world. Um,
But you don't
I
have a channel dedicated to that.
I can be passionate about many different kinds of topics. I don't have to only be an advocate of one thing or another.
I didn't say you had to be. I'm just asking you, why do you prioritize animals over people?
I don't. And what about
Then
all the
why?
people you're ignoring all the people that suffer from the animal agriculture industries as well. What
No, I
about
don't.
those people? What about those
Hold
people who
on.
are working in like
Hold
slaughter
on.
industries?
You're evading my question. So you have a channel that promotes animal welfare. not a channel that promotes human welfare. Is
Um,
that right?
no, that's actually completely wrong.
Why is it wrong?
If you look at my videos, I'm talking about human health. I'm talking about growing your own food and like taking care of your family and like
But you
sharing food
haven't.
with your
But we
friends.
weren't supposed to talk about the health. You haven't met the burden of proof.
Well, all I'm saying is try it yourself. And if you find that you are feeling good and you are healthy, then why wouldn't you keep doing it?
Yeah, but if I find that I'm not doing well, you're gonna say I did it wrong. Like, what is this, socialism? Come on, bro.
Do like listen. I think you're kind of conflating two different things. You're making it sound like I'm saying I'm going to outlaw like eating animal products, and you're going to go to jail if you try to do it, and I'm going to push you to a black market where you're getting your meat fixed from like some crooked alley, guy selling it out of his car.
I
Like,
said that. Wait, I
no,
said
but
that.
but that's what you're kind of making it sound like. All I'm literally
Oh,
saying
that's.
to
I think
people on
that's a
my
strawman
channel,
argument. I
uh,
would appreciate if you didn't strawman my position.
I'm not strawmanning you at all. You're strawmanning me.
What I'm
You're saying
saying
that
is, why
you're
do
saying
you
to me
value?
that I'm telling people that they've done it wrong if they did it wrong. Like that's my view that they did do it wrong.
Right.
Um,
So
yeah,
I
and
so I didn't strawman your position. If you did say that, I didn't strawman your position. But my question, like, we can agree that you have a channel that promotes animal welfare, and you have not met the burden of proof, and there's plenty of evidence that
well,
vegan
a couple
diet is
things to
not.
correct. Sorry, I just can't let you go farther because it's not about animal welfare. Like animal welfare would be like how big are their cages and like how do you kill them and how do you stun them and whatever. I
Oh,
don't.
okay,
No, I mean
let's
I'm
not
talking
play
about like.
semantics. You know what I'm talking about. Let's not play semantics.
Well,
You
it's
know what I'm
it's
talking
it's an
about.
important difference. So I mean,
But you're
it's
playing semantics. You know
no,
that's
no,
not
no,
what I
no.
meant.
No, I don't think it's semantics. I mean, I'm talking about animal abolition in the sense that like I
Yeah,
don't think they should be
okay,
treated as property.
right. That's what I meant. I just
Okay,
used a different word,
okay.
semantics. So you promote uh, animal freedom, or whatever you want to call it, abolition of the animal food industry, but you don't, you know, why isn't your channel about all the people that are dying because and suffering and being thrown in cages and all this other stuff? To me, it seems like you prioritize animals over people.
I'm prioritizing the greatest killer of people there is, which is heart disease. It
But heart
kills
disease,
it kills more
mm,
people on Earth every year than every other like thing.
yeah, but there's no link. There's no proof that meat causes heart disease. There is no proof.
Well,
It
again,
doesn't
if
exist.
all the research
Pal,
I've shown,
no, 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 no. What you've seen,
yeah,
there is
all
not a single study that proves, there are no randomized controlled trials that prove that meat causes heart disease. It doesn't exist. All you have is correlations from epidemiological studies. That's all you have.
that's
That
not
is
true.
correlation.
There's
There are
there's the work
randomized.
by Dr. Esselstyn where he reversed heart disease in people. There's work by Dr. Ornish that has shown the same thing, and there's
Reversed
other
heart disease.
yes.
All I'm saying, so you did not disagree with what I said, because I want to know if there are randomized controlled trials that prove the highest burden of scientific um, inquiry, that not some kind of correlation, but a mechanistic proof with randomized control studies that show and demonstrate without the question, without the shadow of a doubt, that meat causes heart disease. Those do not exist. They don't.
Yeah, I'm not
Just
aware of a
because,
study like that. That's fine.
okay, so you
I'm
can't
happy to
say,
admit that. Yeah,
thus
go ahead.
thus you can't say that meat causes heart disease. You can't say that because there's plenty of evidence that it's inflammation from carbohydrates. There's a lot of that evidence out there. I'm not saying there's conclusive proof, but there's plenty of evidence. So you can't say that your diet, see, you're going back. You said you don't want to talk about it, but it's inevitable. We're going to have to end up there because people's health is part of this ethics issue. And so you can't say, at the very least, you can't say that meat or saturated fat causes heart disease because there's no proof. There isn't.
Okay, so there's a couple things here. I mean, one is that you're kind of avoiding my question, like about the the ethical part, because you really just are so hung up that you just can't accept that somebody can
But
be
what's the
healthy.
question? What's the question?
The question I asked is, if it is unnecessary, is it wrong to harm an animal? And even in the case of like bullfighting, you weren't able to like clearly say yes, that's wrong, because you think that the pleasure the person gains from either watching it or taking part in it outweighs the harm that is being done to the animal. And
See, you just strawman my position. No, you just strawman my position again.
Then why did you say that you don't know how you feel about it, and that maybe the
Because
pleasure is like the reason?
No.
So then rephrase. Go ahead, answer the question again.
You completely misrepresented what I said. I said I don't have a position on it either way.
Okay, but then, so you don't.
Well, then you're gonna have to shut up if you want me to tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't have an opinion either way. I haven't spent time thinking about it. I said I don't like it, but is it objectively morally wrong? I mean, I don't know. As long as they eat the bull, it's cruel. I don't like it personally, but I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's objectively wrong. I'm not going to say that because I haven't considered everything that goes along with that. Like I'd have to sit down and really think about what it means to the people. Do they eat the animal afterwards? Blah, 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 so on and so forth. But just looking at it on the surface, it's cruel. I don't like it. But I'm not going to, I don't really have a strong position either way, and I don't have to.
You don't have to. I'm asking you the question because I want to get a bearing on kind of where your individual stance on ethics.
I answered the question.
Okay, and so, you said you hadn't really considered it, and let's say they do eat the bull, because I think they probably do, or at least some parts of it. But like again, though, this isn't just you're killing it for food. You're actually literally torturing it to death, and then, as a byproduct, you're eating it. But like,
what's the bull doing? What's the bull doing?
What's your question? So you're saying like, oh, the bull's trying to defend itself, so therefore it's okay.
No, I'm asking you, what is the bull doing?
I'm really not sure. I think you're trying to lead.
Do you not?
The bull is trying to run down the guy because he's been like.
He's trying to kill him. The bull is trying to kill the guy.
And do you know what they do to the bulls to enrage them so that they can do that?
But see, this is why I don't want to talk about this, because I don't know, and I'm not interested, because I haven't given it time to. It's like I could drop something on you that you don't know anything. Hold on, let me finish. I could drop something on you that you don't know anything about, and then I could play all these gotcha questions with you. I don't want to talk about it because I haven't spent any time thinking about it. I told you I don't like it, but I don't want to make any conclusions, because again, I don't know what happens exactly. And obviously you're going to cherry pick all the negative things, and you won't present any of the positive things, because your mind is made up, you're ideologically possessed, and you're just going to see it one way. Whereas I'm an open-minded person, and I would need more research, and I just don't feel like going that way. But I want to get back to...
Yeah, but let me answer that, because one is that even when I was eating meat and thought that you needed it for health and everything like that, even then I was against bullfighting, because I think it's just like cruel for the sake of like this entertainment, and I don't think that's right. So if you think of it another way, like I don't know if you like dogs or cats or whatever, but like in a lot of Asian countries, they will not only just eat those animals, which I think is no worse than eating a pig or a cow or anything like that. That's fine, but what they will do is they will torture them as well as part of the cooking process, because they believe it makes it taste better. So they will literally torture the animal before they finish cooking it. They'll sometimes boil them alive. They'll sometimes beat them. They'll sometimes burn them alive. Do all sorts of horrific things, cut off their paws, break their legs, do all this kind of stuff while they're still alive, with the express purpose of hurting the animal because they believe that it makes it taste better. Do you think
what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with me?
So my question is, do you think that is wrong?
But what does that have to do with me? I don't do that.
That's fine. I'm just asking you if that's wrong.
Do you think it's wrong that kids are being killed in the Middle East? Yep. And why don't you make any videos about it, and why don't you fight against it?
Everybody's free to advocate for whatever they want. That doesn't.
So you prioritize. You prioritize animals.
I answered your question.
You answered my question, but you ran away from this one. I didn't
run away from anything.
Well, I think we need a resolution. I want to know why you value animals over people.
I don't value animals over people.
But you don't talk about all the suffering of all the people out there in the world. You talk about animals suffering.
I do talk about the suffering of people, and I've told you that the number one killer of all people is heart disease, and I give my.
But you don't have any proof. But you don't have any proof. But pal, you don't have any proof for this. You're just making this stuff up. You don't have any proof.
I'm not making it up. And the only diet that's ever shown to reverse the effects of heart disease and open up clogged arteries is a vegan diet, is a whole food plant-based diet. It's the only diet that's ever been shown.
Was that a randomized? Was that a randomized controlled?
Clinical setting with proof, like angiograms, all this kind of stuff, showing that the plaques are being reversed and like the vein is opening up, the artery is opening up. That is.
But look.
The only diet that's ever been shown.
Look, I don't believe in your studies, because last time you quoted a study, you completely misrepresented it. I don't have the study in front of me. All I'm saying is that you can't, and even if that's the case, you don't know exactly what they ate, exactly which vegetables they were, exactly what it is that they ate. All you know is that they didn't eat factory farm meat. That's probably all that you know. So that's not science.
Okay,
and
so if
you have, and you have,
so let's go with what. Let's do that.
And
so
hold
that's
on,
fine.
and you,
so,
hold
so
on, I'm not done.
Okay.
And you have in the past misrepresented studies, so I just can't take your word for it anymore. My question is, since there is no proof that meat causes heart disease, and you agree that there isn't, you can't sit there and say that you're fighting for people's welfare because heart disease seems to kill more people. And one other thing I want to say about that, this is how people die. This is how most people die. Our heart just gives out. This is just how we go. Whether you eat a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet, your heart will one day give out and you will die of quote unquote heart disease. It's just what happens. And since there is no proof that meat from healthy animals causes heart disease, you cannot objectively say that you're fighting for people's welfare while at the same time you're seeing all these people get sick when they don't eat meat, and as soon as they start eating meat they get better. So the evidence, it's controversial at the very least. So you can't say that you're fighting for people's welfare in the face of all this evidence. So I want to know why you value animals over people.
I want to explain to you using your own logic. Let's assume that you're right, because I won't call it a mock debate. Let's assume that you're right, that the only reason why those guys had their arteries open up because they stopped eating factory meat. Okay, let's assume that that's correct. Even so,
but I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You asked
me.
You're
going to misrepresent me.
No.
You're going to misrepresent
me. You asked me a question. You said maybe that's the case. How do I know that that's not the case?
Well, but hold on. No. Hold on. Maybe they gave them some kind of medicinal plant that helped with the condition. Okay, plants are medicines.
Great. Okay. So let's find out what.
That still doesn't mean that meat causes heart disease.
Listen to me. Let me finish my statement here. Okay.
But don't misrepresent my position. I'm going to interrupt you if you're misrepresenting.
I'm not misrepresenting anything. You asked me the question, how do I know that it's not the absence of the factory farmed animal products that helped them clear their arteries? That's what you asked.
That wasn't the question.
That's what you asked.
That was only part of the question. How do you know what vegetables, what exactly they ate?
It's written down. It's written down in the study of what they ate. And if you read Dr. Epstein's books,
what did they eat?
He's got
what did they eat? What did they eat?
He has
what
no oil.
What did they eat?
Food. They
what
eat
did they eat?
Whole plant foods. They eat like potatoes, beans, carrots.
They ate
fruits.
Wait, they ate like potatoes, or what did they eat exactly? You don't know what they ate exactly.
If you read the guy's book, you'll know exactly what they ate. I don't know it off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me. My point is this. Even if it's what you're suggesting, because this is what you're doing. You're trying to like say that I'm misrepresenting. I'm not misrepresenting anything. You literally asked me, how do I know it's not the absence of the animal products from the factory thing that did it? And then now you're kind of changing it and adding something else, like it could be some medicinal herb. And maybe even if they kept eating the factory animals and they just had that herb, the medicinal plant, that then they would still have been okay and reverse the heart disease.
No, I didn't say that. But the point was this. The point that you're not addressing is that you can't prove that meat causes heart disease, but you're acting as if it did. but you
What
can't prove that it
what we
does.
do have proof of is that the whole food plant-based diet recommended by Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. Ornish and other people like him, like Dr. Barnard, has been proven in a clinical setting to reverse
But
heart disease.
those are
It's the
vegan
only thing.
doctors, bro. Those are
Okay,
vegans.
and what, the angiograms that they did are fake? Like, what do you think?
Well, when I quoted a study last time in our
Listen,
debate,
show me
can I
any
finish?
kind
Can
of
I finish my
non-vegan doctor showing me any kind of diet that reverses heart disease.
I would like to be able to finish my sentence. When I quoted a study, I cited a study in our last debate. You said it was sponsored by so and so, and it wasn't credible. Now you're quoting studies by vegan doctors who lie all the time because they're pushing a vegan diet because they have all these corporations, processed foods corporations behind them, sponsoring them. Now those studies are, this is why I don't want to talk about studies. All I'm saying is that there is no link. You can't prove that eating meat causes heart disease. You can't. So you can't say that putting people on a vegan diet, you're helping them cure heart disease. You can't say that.
You're being very difficult here, Carnal. The thing is this: you're said again now. I think this is the second or third time you've accused me of saying your study is not good because of who funded it. That is not what I've said, and I've already explained this once, but I'm going to explain it again. The thing that I've said is that if you look at these studies that are funded by the animal agriculture industry, what you end up seeing is when you look at them, they all fall into one of a few different types of studies. They all either don't take baseline for cholesterol measurements, or they do analysis of sick people with already very high levels of cholesterol, and then they feed them more dietary saturated fat and cholesterol, and their cholesterol blood serum level doesn't change because they're already kind of at a topped up like
That's not
level.
what you said in our debate. That's not what you said.
That is what I've said.
That is not what you said.
Okay, well, no. People can go back and watch it, but that's what I'm saying.
But that's not what you said.
Listen, I don't have a problem with who funds the study. I look at the study and then I tell you if I see problems with the study itself.
But you already agreed that there is no link between meat consumption, that there is no proof that meat consumption causes heart disease. You already agreed.
Yes, and what I'm telling you though is that the only diet that has been shown to reverse that disease is the whole food plant-based diet.
It's a carefully managed. But I don't have that study in front of me, so you can't just drop these studies on me that I haven't had time to look at.
Okay, that's fine. Listen, because this was supposed to be about ethics, and this is why you keep going back to here. Like I tried to.
No, I want to talk about ethics.
To health.
Look, I want to talk about ethics.
I gave you the question about the bullfighting. I gave you the question about torturing the dogs in China. Like,
what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with me?
All I'm trying to ask you is, do you think that is morally wrong?
I don't have any opinion on that. I want to know why you value animals over people. I want you to admit that you do, because clearly you do.
Somebody who's very much into arguing against non sequiturs and strawmans and whatever. This is literally both.
Okay, so you have. Let me put it to you this way again, because you seem to be evading the question. You don't have a channel trying to alleviate human suffering. You have a channel looking to alleviate animal suffering. Clearly, you're prioritizing animals over people. How am I getting this wrong?
That's absolutely wrong. I've just told you.
But you can't prove
the killer of people is heart disease. I believe.
But heart disease
that a plant-based diet can reverse heart disease.
Hold on.
By spreading my message, I can save those 8 million people a year.
But they don't want to be saved. These people don't want to be saved.
They don't have to watch my channel. They don't have to watch my channel. The ones that do might get.
Let me make my point. These people didn't ask you. They're not coming to you for help. You're choosing, and you don't even have any proof that their diet causes heart disease, and you already agreed to that, so forget about that. And these people, they have the freedom to eat what they will. They have the freedom to, no one is making them get heart disease. No one is forcing them. No one is impinging on their liberty, okay? They don't need your help. Even if that diet causes problems for them, they choose to live this way. but you can't even prove that it does. They choose to live this way. Now, there are people out there in the world who suffer because of war, corruption, because there are criminals out there, criminal states that murder innocent children. Okay, those people want help. Those people are crying out for help, but you choose to. So if we look at animals and we look at people and we take the factory farm or animals on any farm and we look at people in war zones, that's a good analogy. Okay, so I want to know, looking at it on on the same level, right? I'm not talking about people who don't want your help, people who just want to live their life freely without you imposing on them. I'm talking about people in prisons for, victimless crimes compared to animals in cages. That's a good parallel. I want to know why you prioritize the animals instead of the human animal, or at the very least agree that you do, because you don't have a channel that fights for people who are, wrongfully convicted and thrown in cages or murdered by states and governments. You're fighting for animals. You're not fighting for these people. I want to know why.
So let the viewers decide this question then. Your channel started off primarily as a boxing critique channel, and now it's primarily a mocking vegans and basically touting the benefits of a meat-based diet. Why are you not doing this same kind of stuff? And at the very least, my intentions, even if what you're suggesting is true, even if what you're suggesting is true,
you're misrepresenting
my intention is to save animals.
You're misrepresenting me, pal. You're misrepresenting me, pal. You're misrepresenting me. Hey, you're misrepresenting me. You can't misrepresent me. When I say you're misrepresenting me, I would like you to stop and let me clarify.
Go ahead.
How am I mocking vegans? How am I talking about the virtues of the meat-based diet? How? I'm just sharing my experience. That's all I'm doing. I'm not telling people to eat meat. I'm not mocking vegans. Everything I say is true. How is speaking the truth mocking people? I don't understand that. And besides, I'm not the one trying to change the world here. I'm not ideologically possessed. I'm not telling people how to eat. I'm just sharing my experience. I've already conceded that the vegan diet appears to be helpful to a lot of people. I'm skeptical because I need to see long-term results, whereas you have already stated that meat is not healthy. So I'm not the one who's trying to change the world and influence what people do, or at the very least, I'm not telling them directly to do what I do. I've never done that. You can't find a single video or a single comment under any of my videos talking about how people should eat the way I do. Whereas you, on the other hand, you have an ideology that you want the whole world to adopt. And whenever anybody disagrees with that ideology or fails using your way of eating, then you don't take their personal experience as credible. They did something wrong. So I'm not like you. Yeah, so please don't misrepresent me.
Let me address those points. One, I don't think I've ever seen anybody fail eating the kind of diet I do, because I eat a whole food plant-based diet, and that has never failed as far as I've seen in anybody. So that's number one. Number two, you're saying that you don't advocate for these things. You're not trying to change the world. So again, you look at this like I'm trying to change the world and make it a better place in my own mind, the way that I think is a better place. So I'm doing something, I'm advocating for something that I believe in would make the world a better place. You're not doing that. That's what you just admitted. But yet you choose to try to find fault in the fact that I don't choose to advocate for the thing that you think is more important than the thing that I'm advocating for.
Right, because I disagree with the way you guys are trying to change the world. I like the world the way it is as far as what we eat. I like it the way it is, and I disagree with you guys trying to change it.
You have a problem with factory farming.
Huh?
You said you have a problem with factory farming.
Well, I mean, yeah, but once again, you're using a non sequitur. You're using a non sequitur.
If you do have a problem with factory farming, then I would imagine you wouldn't be happy about 90% of the people who do eat animal products getting them from factory farms.
I have a problem with monoculture and industrial agriculture, but I don't have a problem with people eating those products. Okay, but I do have a problem with the way crops are raised because it's terribly detrimental to the environment and it kills trillions of animals. So I have a problem with that too. Animals that go to waste, no one eats them. But just because I have a problem with the way our world is, that doesn't mean I necessarily have to have a problem with people eating that way, because guess what? Most of the world doesn't have a choice. What do you want me to do about it?
Well, this is exactly the point I wanted to make. Most people don't have a choice because in order to produce enough of these animal products that people want to consume, you have to have the factory conditions. You cannot produce enough animal products for them any other way. That's why they do it. That's why they mass
No,
produce.
you made that up. You made that up. You don't know
That's
this.
that's not me making it up. That's many
You don't know
scientists
this.
on board with that message and people who have nothing to do with
That's an
veganism.
appeal. That's an appeal to authority. I don't care what these cherry pick scientists say. There are a lot of scientists who say the exact opposite. People who are actually in the industry. There used to be 80 million of buffalo running around the Midwest of the United States. Why can't we have that again? So, or more than that, manage it, and you could have more than that.
And
So that's nonsense.
how many people were eating those? A lot less than what we have now.
Yeah,
There's
but
way
this is
more
wild
people on Earth.
animals. This is wild animals.
There's way more people on Earth now.
Yeah,
And
but you're talking about wild animals.
you mentioned people in the industry. If you look up Bovi Diva, what's her name? She's like the dairy industry spokesperson of the whatever, like last year. She had a study that showed that basically modern dairy
Pal,
farming
let's not
practice.
talk about studies. Let's not talk about
No,
studies because
it's not. It's not
no,
a. Listen,
I don't want to
this
talk
is
about.
not a vegan.
I
This is
don't
a
have it in
person who
front of me.
works in the dairy
Yeah, but
industry,
pal.
she's
Yeah, I know. I don't
more
have the study in front of me. I don't want to talk about it.
damaging
I
to
don't want
the
to talk
dairy.
about studies, pal.
It's
Because
funny
you've
because she's saying
misrepresented.
all sorts of stuff, but then as soon as
No, I'm
somebody
not.
says the
No, I'm
opposite,
not. No, I'm not. All I'm saying is that all that I said about studies is that there aren't studies that prove all these things that you think are true. So I don't want to talk about studies because you misrepresent the science to fit your ideology. I'm not interested in any study that I don't have in front of me that I can't talk about. It's nonsense. I could say there's a study, blah, blah. I could just pull it out of my ass. And what are you going to do? You're going to say, no, it doesn't exist. It was sponsored by so-and-so. So let's not talk about studies. All I'm saying, and you seem to be stuck on this point. You don't seem to want to concede because to me, it looks like you value animals over people. You don't value people's freedom to eat what they want to eat. You seem to value animals' freedom over people's freedom.
that's
Is that
absolutely
incorrect?
that's absolutely incorrect. I value the life of an animal to be more important than somebody's taste preference, and for somebody that can be
But
healthy
you're
on a
saying
vegan
taste
diet,
preference.
and for somebody who can be healthy on a vegan diet, my stance is that
But
if they
how?
choose to eat animal products when they don't need to do it, that is unnecessary and in fact immoral. That is my
But you
stance.
don't know that because you don't have the studies to
I,
prove this.
you don't need a study. I'm saying if you tried a vegan diet and after 3 years you felt amazing, and then you decided, well, I just want to go back to eating animal products for no reason whatsoever, other than the fact that it's tasty and convenient, I think that's immoral.
Yeah, but Vegetable Police tried the vegan diet for 10 years. And as
He
soon
had
as
all
he
sorts
started,
of problems throughout the
can
whole
I
thing.
finish? Can
He
I
had all sorts of
finish?
problems throughout the whole
Can I
thing, and he
finish?
chose not to go
Pal,
to a
can you
legit
not
factory.
interrupt me all the time? Pal,
Go
I'm
ahead,
getting
Carnal.
sick and tired of you interrupting
interrupted
me all the
me.
time.
You interrupted me to state your question, but go ahead.
Because I interrupt you when you misrepresent me. You interrupt me when I start speaking. There's
That's
a
not
big
true.
difference there. Yeah. He was on a vegan diet for 10 years, and it helped. It helped a lot with his problems. He ate a plant-based diet first with some animal products, and he had ulcerative colitis. Then he started eating a vegan diet, and it solved his ulcerative colitis. But he had all kinds of issues like inflammation, bloating, and all this other stuff. And as soon as he started eating meat, he felt great. So why do you discount that? Why do you take your experience as something that should work for everybody else, but his experience, you discount that as, well, he did it wrong? That's not fair. Why is that fair? What do you base this on? Just because
I
you've
can
had a
tell you if you
certain
want to hear it.
experience, yeah, but just because you've had a certain experience, that doesn't mean that's replicable in other people, does it?
You want me to answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. So my take on vegetable police, and I talked about this recently in my Q&A, is that he was indeed doing it wrong. He was constantly going from one extreme crazy diet to another, within the vegan context. But this is again why I say there isn't one vegan diet. There's 1,000,001 vegan diets, and he was choosing the wackiest and craziest of them all. He was pretty usually under eating. That was like one constant thing that's like very evident if you watch most of his videos. He's like for a long time now, he's been following like Amun Ra protocol, 1,500 calories a day, doing all this kind of stuff. And he's very physically active. He's doing like pull-ups and calisthenics and all these other kinds of exercises. He's riding his bike. He's way under eating. And even now in his most recent video, well, not, I don't know if his most recent, but like a couple of videos ago, when he actually announced that he was eating the beef diet for 30 days, he's literally said that he's eating 2,000 calories. Going up from 1,500 calories a day to 2,000 calories is a huge difference. You talked before about brain fog and like low, like energy and whatever. That could very easily make a huge difference. 500 calories a day when you're only eating 1,500 calories, that's a huge jump. That's 33% increase. And that would probably explain a lot of his issues. The other thing that I have a problem with him is that he's never gone to any kind of like legit like doctor since he's kind of cured himself of the ulcerative colitis. Since then, he's just been kind of finding one crazy nutty guru after another and doing wackier and wackier stuff to try to like cure himself of problems that are, I think, largely self-induced. Things like the turpentine cleanse. I mean, I know he only did that at the end, but there are other things that he was doing that were similar. So this Amun Ra thing, the 1 meal a day thing, he's not understanding that like he's saying like, oh, it's proof that the 1 meal a day isn't what's causing him a problem because he's still only eating 1 meal a day with the beef. When you eat 2,000 calories of beef, it's probably, like the size of your fist and maybe a little more. Like that takes up that much space in your stomach. 2,000 calories of plant food is going to be like this because if you're eating like greens and salads and potatoes and whatever, it's like way more volume. So if you put this much stuff in your stomach in one day, in one sitting at 3 hours, let's say is his feeding window or whatever he was saying he's following. If you're putting in this much stuff into your stomach when you have like an underlying problem like he does, that's going to be a huge difference versus putting in this much stuff in your stomach in 1 3-hour window. So he doesn't even understand basic logical things like this. And then he makes all sorts of claims. That's my problem with vegetable police.
So meat healed them.
No.
The cognitive dissonance is cute. Not one single vegan out there was talking about his crazy diets, was criticizing him for all the cleanses and stuff he was doing when he was vegan and he was saying he was curing himself. Not one single vegan out there criticized him. Hold on a second. Pal, I'm not done.
Yeah, go ahead.
As soon as he started eating beef and he's no longer vegan, oh my God, let the criticism pour in. See, this is exactly what I meant when I said that meat is most nutrient dense and it's our food. It healed them. It doesn't matter how you spin it. It really doesn't matter, pal. It healed them. You can't deny that. It made them better. So meat healed vegetable police.
Can I respond?
So do you disagree that meat healed them?
Yes, I do, and I can.
How do you know that? How do you know that?
I don't know that. You asked me my opinion. That's my opinion. That it didn't heal anything. I think he still has underlying issues, and he's still going to have bloating and pain as soon as he starts eating anything else. Now you can claim, well, he shouldn't eat anything else. He should just keep eating beef. Well, I think if he does that, he's going to develop other problems in the long term because of the other things that I believe about heart disease and its causes. Oh, give me 1 second. Hold on, my daughter's here. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
It's no problem. So you believe a lot of things, which is fine.
Well, so let me say, so this is the thing. I think long term that will cause him problems, but I think even in the short term, it hasn't healed him. I gave you an example of just like, for example, the volume of food. That could make a huge difference. If you look at any of the kind of like literature on ulcerative colitis or any kind of like bowel related kind of like syndromes and problems, they all recommend eating smaller meals throughout the day so that you're not stressing it just with the volume of food. So that's like one thing that he's just choosing to ignore. That alone could explain the reduction of symptoms.
But that's because we have small stomachs that weren't designed to process fiber. We're not designed to just shove all this food in our faces because, but whatever. I don't
Well,
even want
again,
to go
yeah, but
down that road.
you asked me why I don't think he's healed. I don't think he's healed. I think he's masking the underlying symptoms.
Well, he
And
says he is, but he says he is.
okay, but he said he was healed before, and then he had problems
He
again 2 or 3
was.
weeks later.
No, no, no,
So
no, 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 no. He healed ulcerative colitis. He did. I already
right,
said that.
right,
But he had
and
other
then
problems
yeah, he had
still,
other problems. That's right, skin
and he
and
healed them with meat.
no, he's healed those problems throughout the 10 years as well with various things, except that they've always just come back because he's doing these wacky things and he just feels better in the short term. All I'm saying is this is another short term. It might be a little longer than the 2 weeks before, but I don't think he's going to be feeling great in a year from now. That's all I'm saying.
We'll see.
Yeah,
But that's
we'll see.
that's just an assumption.
And then, yeah, that's fine. And then I just want to answer your question because you said, well, why haven't people been criticizing him? If you look at my channel, I don't have videos up criticizing people about whatever they're doing. I only have videos up about encouraging people to do things. I don't knock Casey. I feel bad for him. I don't want to do a why I think Vegetable Police did it wrong video. I'm not going to do that. People asked me for my opinion in the Q&A that I did, and I answered it, but I didn't do a video about it, and I'm not going to do a video about it because that's not the focus of my channel. I believe in like showing people, what I think is a good way, and if people choose to try it for themselves, and if it works for them, great, and if not, then hey, I'm sorry, and do what you need to do. Like, so, why didn't more people make videos about him doing crazy stuff when he was doing these, like guru kind of recommendation kind of stuff? I don't know. I mean, maybe there are more people like me. I don't know, and that's not my thing. Like, again, like I'm just saying, don't project it on me. I don't know why the other people didn't do it. I don't really care. I'm not going to do it now either. I'm not going to explain why he did it wrong or whatever. Like, if people ask me my opinion, I'll tell you. That's what I think. But I think ultimately he should have gone to see like a legit doctor and gotten like tested on himself. He hasn't done that in the past 10 years.
The point I was making is that all his diets, crazy diets, seemed to be okay with all the vegans until he started eating meat. Then his particular brand of veganism, and I think he tried them all, was all of a sudden no good. So it is what it is.
Well, he hasn't tried them all because, like I said, there's 1,000,001 ways to eat a vegan diet. There's literally like an infinite number of ways that you can eat a vegan diet. He has certainly
or he could just eat beef, and I'm going to trust his word. We'll see what happens. But he says he's cured, so we're going to have to go with that because he knows his body better than you or I.
Okay, that's fine. And using that same logic, I know my body better than anybody else, and I'm telling you that a whole food plant-based diet is amazing, and it's great.
But pal, I never said it's not good for you. I've never said that. I said I'm skeptical.
And then we can go back to my question to you then. If I, knowing that I'm healthy and happy, and you've said that I know my body best, if I know that I'm perfectly happy and healthy and thriving on a plant-based diet, if I choose to go and eat animals tomorrow just because I don't know, want to eat them because I like the taste, is that morally wrong or not?
I can't tell you that because that's up to you. I don't think it would be morally wrong for you to start eating animals if you wanted to. You do whatever you want to do. Why would I care?
Yeah, I guess this goes back to kind of the question about like the liberty. Like, if there's no victim, then I would agree with you. But there is a victim in that there is an animal who didn't want to die that I would be killing just to eat it because I like the taste.
So if I'm out in nature and I'm starving and there's an animal there I could hunt, is it okay for me to eat it?
I think so, yes. If you're going to starve unless you eat that animal, then yes.
So you do value people. So you do value people over animals.
Yeah, and I've said that to you many times throughout, except you just kind of chose to ignore it.
So you're speciesist.
In this regard, yeah, I am.
So you are a speciesist, okay. Well, I think there's a certain contradiction in your ideology because you seem to value animals. I mean, I know you'll disagree, and you have your own justification for that. I know where that comes from, but we could just move past that. So you don't think eating animals is akin to murder, do you?
No, I don't. I don't use those terms either. If you look at my videos, but the thing is, again, in the context. So like, if you're in a life and death situation, I certainly don't think it's immoral. I don't think it's immoral for a lion to eat a zebra, but again, they need to. They need that to survive. One, that's number one, and number two, they don't have moral capacity like we do. So I certainly wouldn't like fault them for it. And kind of in a similar way, if you absolutely needed to, like the desert island scenario, like the classic thing that all vegans get asked, like, yeah, like I guess I would to stay alive too. Like I wouldn't be able to fault anybody for that. I also wouldn't be able to fault anybody if they chose to chose to starve to death instead. Like that's their own choice as well. But I certainly wouldn't say that it's immoral if somebody had to survive. But that doesn't answer my question, because I asked you, is it morally wrong for me to do it when I don't need to, and I know that I'm perfectly happy and healthy without it?
Well, if assuming, and we're going to have to assume that
Right.
all of that is true, then no, in your particular case, since you're claimed to be an herbivore, and I'm going to assume that you are an herbivore, then no, it wouldn't. Well, I don't know if it would be morally. I think there is a context where it would be morally okay. I think there is a context where that would be okay, but factory farming would definitely be out of the question. Like, that's just, if you don't need to, then why contribute to that, right? But like, if you were raising your own chickens and eating chicken eggs, and you had a goat and you were drinking her milk, like, I think that would be perfectly morally okay. So I can't
I
give you
guess,
like a black and
okay.
white answer.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, I guess, yeah, it's just a difference of opinion. Like for me, I don't think it would be morally okay. I think if I didn't need to do it, I know that I'm healthy without it and thriving. I think it's morally wrong.
But there's morality, and not everybody draws this distinction, but in philosophy you draw a distinction between morality and ethics. Morality being your own subjective worldview insofar as your own behavior is concerned, and then ethics being what's considered moral for the larger group, right? How you want to see the world function. So as far as your own personal morality, that's up to you. But as far as uh, influencing broader ethics, I don't think you have the right to morally judge people on what they do, because, like you were saying, you believe, or that the plant-based diet has been working for you for 3 years only, so you're convinced that that's the way to go. But if someone like Vegetable Police, who's tried all the vegan diets, he believes or knows that the meat-based diet is right for him, well, then that's right for him. You know what I mean? So maybe there isn't one diet for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think there is. You have different types of horses, but they all eat grass, right? Like, there's some big ones, there's some little ones. You can have a Clydesdale and a pony, but they still eat grass. If you look at a dog, I mean, they all eat the same kind of stuff. Like, I think people are like that too. Like, generally
But we're not
speaking.
herbivores. We're not herbivores.
Well, what I'm saying is, if it works for millions of people, it probably would work for the majority as well. That's all I'm saying. Um, yeah. Okay. So listen, I mean, I don't really know what other kind of angle or approach to talk about, because I think this is kind of what I was getting at, is that veganism is really as simple as viewing the unnecessary exploitation of animals as wrong and something that should be avoided. That's as simple as we can make it. So even using your own logic, all I would try to encourage people watching to do is, if you haven't tried it yet, try it. And if you feel good on it, and if you are healthy on it and don't have any issues and don't have any problems, then please do consider that your choice to eat animals is unnecessary, and that you are causing them harm and suffering that you could avoid. And if that is the case, I would ask you to look at your own conscience and decide not to do it.
Well, I was actually hoping to talk about name the trait from the very
Okay,
beginning, because I
let's
have
do
lots of.
that. We can move to that. That's fine. Did you want to
Okay,
address
so,
anything that I just said though? Like, do you want to say anything to
well,
that?
I mean, unnecessary is a loaded term, and as we're finding out, it's very controversial. So, but I don't want to go that route again. It's
Okay,
just an
that's fine.
assumption.
Okay, so let's go into name the trait. That's fine.
Can you name the trait absent in plants that if it were absent in animals would make it okay to kill and eat animals. What do you think of? What do you think about name the trait in the first place? Do you think?
Sorry, I'm just trying to repeat the thing you said.
I'll repeat it again, but
yeah, repeat it again. Go ahead.
But I wanted to ask you just from the get-go, what do you think about naming the trait? Do you think it's valid?
Yeah, so name the trait, I actually have kind of like ambivalent thoughts about, because I think it's kind of confusing to a lot of people. So it's very hard even just to explain it to somebody so that they understand what it's trying to get at. So in that sense, I don't really kind of like it. I don't feel like I really understand all of the kind of little intricacies fully well enough to explain it to somebody else. So I don't use it myself. I don't like try to sound. I don't like trying to sound smart, like I know something when I don't. I don't feel like I know that. So that's why I said, even at the beginning, like I'm happy to talk about some of the things you talked about it and criticized, because I have some things that I don't like about the way you criticized it. So we can talk about that. But like as a whole, I guess I kind of largely agree with it. And I'll summarize my view of it, and then you can say if you kind of understand what I mean, or if you disagree with it. Is the way I understand it to be is that it's trying to show you that if you value humans or animals, it doesn't matter which one, like you have some moral value that you attach to them. If you view that to be the case, then if you also can't find any trait that's different, that if it wasn't in the humans, that you would view humans as worthless, then to stay morally consistent, you have to basically accept that the animals have to be treated similarly to humans, and that they should be left alone and not exploited, etc. Is that a good summary of kind of the way?
That's how it's presented. Yeah, it really isn't that, but that's how it's presented. But what I'm doing right now is I'm taking people out of the equation, and I want you to justify why it's okay to eat plants. I'm using the name the trait trick to say, and I'm going to read again what I just read, and then I'm going to explain it maybe in more layman's terms, because I agree the wording is very confusing.
Well, it was just fast, and I was trying to repeat it in my mind to make sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, just say it again.
I'm going to say it again, then I'm going to try to simplify it. So name the trait absent in plants that if it were absent in animals would make it okay to kill and eat animals. In other words, what is it that plants lack that animals do have that makes it okay to eat plants and not animals, right? If we're going to be morally consistent.
Yeah, and you probably know that I'm going to say sentience.
Can you define sentience?
The ability to feel.
Well, feel, is that all that it is? It's more than that, but if that's how you define sentience, then that's fine.
I actually, in preparation for this, kind of did some reading on it, and yeah, there's a lot of kind of argument about who defines it how, but I think the thing that is the least arguable is that is a basic requirement. You have to be able to feel.
That's it, just feel. So feel pain or emotion?
Well, I mean, feel anything, like, yeah, like.
So those are two traits. To feel pain is one trait. To feel emotion is another trait.
Either one is fine, but I mean, just even feeling like hot, cold, whatever, like basically, having, you need a nervous system, you need a brain to be able to feel those things. Like, well, let's go with pain. Let's go with pain or suffering or love, or let's do like affection or something like that.
Well, what I'm saying is that there's physical pain and then there's mental anguish too, So
okay, but animals feel that too. So like you can go with anguish or love. Let's go with love so that it's positive.
Right. Well, the way sentience is generally defined is the ability to feel and perceive, so to have objective reality, right? You know that you exist, you're aware of your existence, you could perceive and you could feel things. So it's both physical, feeling, and...
Sorry, it's not objectively, it's subjectively.
Yes, sorry, yeah. Subjective reality, of course. So all I'm saying is that it's really more than one trait. But semantically, it sounds like one, but it's really more than one trait if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty. Are you okay with that?
But wait, you're saying sentience is more than one trait?
Yeah, because it's the ability to feel pain, right? And it's also the ability to perceive. So, like, you have vision, right? You smell things. You have
Yeah,
feelings and emotions, right?
but
Right. So
it's
it's
the
a
ability to perceive. Like, I mean, that doesn't mean that it's more than one trait. But I'm not sure why you're like is there some bigger point that you want to make about it being more than one trait? I just don't know like why you're making
yeah.
that
There is a
distinction.
bigger point that I'm gonna get to in a little bit
Okay, go
because
ahead. I'm just trying to understand. Like, go ahead.
yeah, all I'm saying is that semantically it sounds like it's one trait, but it's really that's why it's been so difficult to define because it's not just what the sense of smell, right? Or the ability to hear. It's all these things, and maybe not all of them, but it's definitely a multitude of traits encapsulated in one. That's all I wanted to say, just so we understand. So you're saying plants because plants aren't sentient and animals are. It's okay to eat plants and not animals.
Right. Yes.
But what you just said is that it's okay to eat not only if sentient is the trait, it's not only okay to eat plants, it's also okay to eat animals, and it's also okay to eat human beings as long as you take away their sentience first.
No, no, that's not how the name the trait is supposed to work. You're basically saying you've taken away something that they inherently have. So this is, this is kind of like if you've seen, there have been news articles about people trying to develop animals without brains, like genetically alter them and or somehow affect them while they're still like in gestation, so that they grow without a brain, and that they would literally be like meat machines kind of, or somehow lobotomize them or something so that they don't feel pain. I would still be morally opposed to that because that is something that is inherent to them, but you're taking it away. It's like like I know you've done this in your video where you said like Isaac will say, ask yourself, will say like if somebody is in a brain dead state, a vegetative state in the hospital, that is it okay to harm them even if they like say like they don't have any friends, no family, they're totally alone, like no other person on the earth would even care if they lived or died because they didn't even know who he was. They would
You're
assume
moving the
anything.
goalpost. You're
I know.
moving the
I'm
goalpost,
saying
Brandon.
you've mentioned that kind of state, and whether or not that is a thing of sentience or not. In my view, even that person might still have some very very low level of sentience available to them. Um, there have been cases of people waking up from comas like years later. There have been people, all like doing similar kinds of things months later. We just don't really know. So I would still not be okay with harming that person, because they inherently had sentience, and just because it got taken away from them, I still wouldn't view that as being permissible. So you're saying to take an
So you
animal's
move the
sentience away?
goalpost.
No, I'm not moving the goalpost. I'm saying if you took away sentience from an animal that had it, I would still not be okay with eating it.
Well, I know you wouldn't be okay with it, but that also means naming the trait is just a trick that doesn't work for you.
How do you think that is
Okay,
the same
so
thing of taking away their sentience?
let me tell you. So you're saying that the reason why we should respect animals is because they're sentient, right?
Yep.
And I'm asking you, why should we respect sentience?
Okay. Yep. So the reason why I think we should respect sentience is because they can feel all those things, like you said. It's multiple things. They can feel love. They can feel fear, anguish, pain, whatever, suffering. And just like I wouldn't want that done to myself, for
So
somebody
you're
to take
saying,
away my ability
so
to
this is what
move.
you're saying. No, I get it, but this is what you're saying. You're saying we should respect animals because they have sentience, and then you're saying we should respect sentience because sentience. That's circular reasoning.
No, I'm saying it because
Yes, it is.
I
Do you know
enjoy
what
being
circular
sentient.
reasoning is?
No, no, this is not circular reasoning. You asked me why I think we should value sentience, and I said the reason why we should value sentience is because we have it ourselves and we value sentience in ourselves. That's why we should value it in others, because I wouldn't want to be treated the way that people treat these sentient beings.
Right. So you're saying the reason why we should value sentience is because we value sentience. That's
In
circular reasoning.
ourselves. In ourselves.
Yeah, but that's circular reasoning.
It's not circular reasoning. It's
Yes,
the
it
golden
is.
rule. It's the golden rule. Because
Okay.
because
Hold
I
on.
value my own
Hold on,
because I
pal.
value my
Hold on,
own
pal. Hold on
support.
one second.
You're
Hold on one
cutting me
second.
off and you're
You
not
said
letting.
because you said the golden rule, you snuck in another axiom. You said sentience, and now you're saying the golden rule. So you're sneaking in an axiom. I'm sorry, I have to stop you.
Oh no,
You're
I
saying
didn't. I snuck that
you
in,
said
quote
that,
unquote, because you're not understanding what I'm saying. You're trying to cut me off mid-sentence. You're saying sentience is important because I value sentience. That's not my sentence. My sentence was sentience should be valued in those beings because I value sentience in myself.
right, but it's still sentience that you're valuing.
In myself, and that is not
But it's
circular
still
reasoning.
sentience. So what's the rationale there? The golden rule, right?
No, the golden rule doesn't address why you value sentience in yourself.
Okay, so I asked you the reason why we should value animals is because they're sentient. And then I asked you why should we value sentience, and you said because we value sentience in ourselves.
That's right. Yes.
Right, but you're still just valuing sentience. You're saying we should value sentience because we value sentience. That's what you're saying.
So, do you not value sentience in yourself? Are you not
Well,
happy
yeah.
that you can experience things and like move around?
Yeah, but
and, like,
what does
smell
that
a
have to
pretty
do with
flower
animals?
and see a
Well,
beautiful waterfall?
that's a silly question. Of course I do.
Okay, great. So if you value that, then what I'm saying is,
but that's not name the trait. But you're moving away from name the trait. Hold on.
Name the trait.
Let's.
Because other people and other sentient beings can experience similar kinds of joys that you can and that you value, I think it's morally correct to also not do anything to impinge on their ability to like appreciate those things.
But I don't value sentience because I value sentience. That's circular reasoning. I value sentience because I value my life. I value my humanity. That's why I value sentience, my sentience.
Okay.
But hold on, just because I value my sentience, that doesn't mean that I value to the same degree an animal's sentience. Because my sentience, in order for me to preserve my sentience, that sentient animal sometimes has to die. So I don't look at it that way. But the question was to name the trait, and you named sentience. Sentience is why we should respect animals, right? So when I asked you why should we respect sentience, you said we should respect sentience because we respect sentience. Just because the sentience is in the animal or you, it's still, sentience doesn't exist outside of any animal. Obviously, it has to be in an animal. But what you basically engaged in there is circular reasoning. You can't say, well, we value sentience because we value sentience. That's illogical. That's circular reasoning. I hope you understand that.
No, you're twisting my words, and I'm going to clarify it again. I value sentience because of the joy I get from being able to perceive things around me, or
that's sentience. That's sentience, right?
That's why I value sentience.
But that's sentience. You value sentience because you value sentience.
No, it's because
that's what you said.
It's because of the joy that you feel from those perceptions.
Right.
Or in the negative, you can say like the harm that you avoid. So that can also be like a good
right
thing.
but you just defined, you said I value sentience because, and then you gave me the definition of sentience.
That's not the definition of sentience. We agreed that the definition of sentience is to feel.
Right.
And then you can rattle off the things that you can feel.
Okay, so
sentience is the ability to feel. That is the ability. The reason why you value it is because it allows you, with that ability, to feel a whole host of things that are positive for your experience.
So you're still engaging in circular reasoning. I don't understand why that's so difficult for you to understand. So you're saying this basically: I value sentience because me having sentience allows me to feel these positive things. Because sentience is also feeling negative things, and you're just concentrating on the positive things that feel all these positive feelings. So basically what you're saying is that I value sentience because I value sentience. That's what you're saying. That is what you're saying, pal.
I can't tell if you're like purposely not understanding me or you're like
no. You're the one who's not understanding.
What is the difference? I'm using circular reasoning. What I'm telling you, sentience is the ability to feel, and the either the positive or the avoidance of the negative. You can look at it from either direction. It doesn't matter. It's ultimately the same thing. the positives that you get from having that ability, like basically make your experience of being alive what it is. Like that's what kind of makes
But
you
that's why we value sentience, right? We value sentience because it gives us all these positive feelings, right?
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, that's circular reasoning because you say I value sentience because I value sentience.
Okay. Great. It's circular reasoning. Go ahead. And what's your point?
Well, you just reduced your position to nonsense
Okay.
because
Why?
the problem with, well, I could play the game with you if you ask, and it'll become clear if you ask me, what the trait is that's absent in animals. If it were absent in humans, would make it okay to eat humans, right? If you ask me what that trait is, that'll maybe help you understand the problem with
Okay. So
name the
what is
trait.
it? What do you think is absent in animals?
Well, I don't really believe it is, but just for the sake of the argument and to play this game and explain it better to you, I'm going to say intelligence, to which you would say what? I would say, people are of moral value because of our intelligence that animals don't possess. So we shouldn't eat people
Yeah,
because they're
I've
highly.
watched this part from your video. So yeah, then I would say, then what about a mentally, handicapped person? And then you would say, well, then you could eat them because of the same argument, and then it would be a moral contradiction because you would say no, it's still not okay to eat the morally handicapped person. Sorry, the mentally handicapped person. It would still be immoral.
Do you know
That's,
why?
why do you think?
Well, it's not what I think. This is a fact. The first premise of name the trait is it's a syllogism, right? The first premise is humans are of moral value. The second premise is name the trait, right? And the conclusion is if you can't name the trait, then you shouldn't be eating animals, right? So if the first, and the syllogism, the way it works is that you have to agree on the first two premises in order for the third to follow. So I could name whatever trait I want, intelligence or, whatever. And it's still not going to be okay to eat people because humans are of moral value. That's part and parcel of the name the trait argument. So you can't, you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
you
but I
can't.
think there's one thing that you may have kind of represented. So the purpose of name the trait isn't necessarily so that if you value humans and you can't name the trait, then you can't eat animals. You can still eat animals. It's
But you're
just
going to be
saying,
morally inconsistent. That's what
right,
I mean.
right.
Why? You're playing semantics. But the first premise is humans are of moral value. And on that first premise, the whole argument hinges. So you can't ignore the first premise and act like it's okay to eat people, no matter what. Why? Because humans are of moral value. And what name the trait attempts to do is extend human rights to animals, which is nonsensical because there's a reason why they're called human rights. So it doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so let me get a couple things asked. One is, again, it's semantics too. You don't have to have human rights be in the definition, but just the right to not be unnecessarily harmed.
You have to have human rights.
No, but I'm saying you don't have to call that human rights. I mean, you can just call
You
that
have
any
to.
kind of sentient being.
No, you have
Why?
to. You have to.
This goes back to my question about unnecessarily harming an animal. If somebody just forget the case of the bullfighting and the dog because they're eating it, and you can say, well, they need to eat it. Let's just say for I don't know, just some guy who's a jerk who gets home from work and he's pissed off from his coworkers, and he gets home and he just beats the crap out of his dog, for no reason whatsoever. Do you think that that's wrong?
You're going down a whole rabbit hole when I said that you have to have humans are of moral value as the first premise. You absolutely have to have it because what you're trying to
I
do.
didn't deny that.
So why are we going down this rabbit hole?
I do think humans have moral value, and I think also animals have moral value.
And it's part of this name. It's this integral part of name the trait. So do you understand how name the trait is a trick and it doesn't work?
I'm not following your reasoning as to why you think it doesn't work, and that's why I was asking this clarifying question. Because what I'm saying is that's not a human right conferred on the dog, but the dog should have a right to not just get his owner.
No. We're not talking about dogs in China, pal.
No, I'm not talking about dogs in China. I'm talking about dogs in
We're talking about name the trait. No. We're talking about name the trait. Name the trait.
What you
How?
said is that it's called human rights for a reason, and I'm saying it shouldn't be called human rights for any reason. Like what I'm saying is,
No, it should be. It has to be.
why
You
do you
need me
think
to explain it to you.
why do you think it's
I
illegal? Why do you think it's illegal
no
for
no no
somebody to go
pal.
home and beat their dog
No
for no
pal.
reason?
Pal, it has to be called human rights. It is called human rights for a very specific reason.
That's
I
called
can't
animal
let you.
rights.
No
That's
no no.
called
Hold
animal
on.
rights.
No. I'm talking about name the trait first premise. Humans are of moral value.
It doesn't say
It
anything about
has,
human rights.
but that's what it means. Humans are of moral value, which from that necessitates that humans have rights, human rights. It has to be in there. Because then you're comparing, it's part and parcel of the whole argument. I can't let you get away from this. Because the whole trick tries to,
Go ahead.
the whole trick tries to extend, and you know this, tries to extend human rights to animals. That's what this whole trick is doing. So in order for humans to have human rights, humans must be of moral value. And if that's going to be the premise on which the whole argument hinges, you cannot at any one point, without destroying your own argument, act like humans are not of moral value just because they're retarded or what have you. This is why it's just a trick.
Who does that?
Well,
Like
when
somebody
I say,
used this with you and said that humans don't have moral value?
yeah, because when I say intelligence, right, all of a sudden somebody will say, well, then it's okay to eat a retard. And no, it's not okay to eat a retard. Why?
No. I don't think Ask Yourself would say that it's okay to eat a retard.
He did many times. He said many times.
No. I think you're misunderstanding it or twisting his words because I've watched many of his debates.
Hold on. No. Pal.
Let me get a word in.
He did. No, you're misrepresenting him.
Let me get a word in.
You're misrepresenting him.
I think you're misrepresenting him.
If you watch my videos, then you know what he said. Because I've used his own word. Like you said, you watch my videos. It's in my videos. He said, then it's okay within your own moral system. If you believe intelligence is the trait, it's okay to eat a retard. And you have to bite the bullet and eat the retard. He said this many times. Let's not play any games.
He's not saying he believes that. He's saying that if you want to stay morally consistent and you're
have
using
to bite
that
the bullet.
as just right, that's what he's saying. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that no, it's not okay to eat a retard because humans are of moral value. The first premise on which your entire argument hinges, which is why it's just a stupid little trick.
No, that's fine. But then that just means that intelligence can't be the trait that you use to justify eating the animals. That's all that means. It doesn't prove that name the trait doesn't work.
Yeah, I can eat animals based on their lesser intelligence. Of course I can.
But then again, to stay morally consistent, that means you would be eating the retards, or not that you would be, but that you wouldn't find it objectionable. That you wouldn't find it objectionable.
Do you know what a syllogism is?
Tell me, I don't know. Go ahead.
It's this argumentative strategy where you have premise 1, premise 2, and a conclusion. And the conclusion can only work if premise 1 and premise 2 stay intact, right? So the only way you could draw the conclusion that it's okay to eat a retard is if humans are not of moral value. That's why it's just a stupid trick, because the whole argument hinges on the fact that we both agree on that humans are of moral value, which means...
Okay, so I think I get what you're saying now. Okay, but listen, so the answer to this, I think, is that you don't understand what the name the trait thing is at its crux. It's basically...
Oh, no, I do. I understand it very well.
It's basically trying to say that you're looking for something that distinguishes the two things. So the non-human animal from the human animal. That's what it's trying to do. It's trying to distinguish. There must be some difference between the two of them because you treat one way and you treat the other way. Would you agree with this?
Yeah, but it's a lot more than that.
Okay, but you agree so far with what I've said.
Yeah, but that's not the complete picture.
Okay, but I'm trying to get to something. So far you agree that it's ultimately trying to say I treat this group of non-human animals one way and I treat human animals another way. There must be some difference between them that makes it okay for me to do this to this and not do that same thing to this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what your answer to that was like intelligence. And then...
Yeah, but you skipped over humans are of moral value. Why are you ignoring that?
I'm not ignoring that.
But you understand that premise number one is what the entire argument hinges on, right?
Right. Humans are of moral value. Right.
So once we agree that humans are of moral value, we can't say that humans are not of moral value, right?
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
And
So
so
that's
let
why
me
I would.
finish. So let me finish because we're still on the same page so far. So all I'm saying is you got humans here and you got the non-human animals here. For the humans, you're saying intelligence is not enough. Like the difference in intelligence is not enough to treat one person out of this group different than these other people. Like these guys are all really smart. This guy's really stupid.
No, that's not
Like,
why. That's not what I'm saying.
well,
That's not what I'm saying.
no, but because you
You're
value,
saying that.
No, you're saying humans are of moral value. Everybody
Yeah.
in this group is of moral value.
Yeah,
Right?
because they're human.
Because they're
Yeah.
humans, exactly. And you would not accept saying that this guy is really mentally handicapped. He can barely tie his shoes or whatever. He can't even get out of bed. You would not accept that being used as a differentiator to treat him poorly to these guys.
Because humans are of moral value.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So then all the name the trait thing is trying to show is that because you value humans and you can't use intelligence as a way to differentiate and basically like, you know, discriminate against one of these people, you can't use intelligence to discriminate amongst them, then in this group of non-human animals, between them, you can't use intelligence to discriminate between these two groups either, because it's just you value.
Are animals humans? Are animals humans?
The better question is, are humans animals? And they are. We are a subset of this group.
But
people are the subset of the animals.
But the premise is not animals are of moral value. The premise is the human animal is of moral value. That's the premise.
Yes, and the question was, what is the trait that distinguishes this group, which is a subset of this group? So you can think of it as like a smaller group within this group. So
humanity.
Humanity is the
trait.
Humanity
of course
is the
it
trait.
is.
So
of course.
Sorry, it's getting kind of late. We're gonna have to probably finish up pretty soon.
It's fine.
It's like bath time. But sorry. So yes. So humanity, you're saying is the trait. It's
I was just playing with intelligence, but even just intelligence works just fine because humans are of moral value. So it doesn't matter how dumb the human is; he's still a human.
You have like this big group. This is animals. We are a small section of that big group, right? So I'm trying to do the big circle and the little circle. So the little circle is the humans inside the big circle of animals. And you're saying the reason why we can treat the people outside of this little group badly is because they're not in our little group. They're not humans. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So then the question again goes to what you've tried to.
Well, I didn't say badly. Badly, that's your word.
Well,
essentially, yeah.
Like killing them and eating them. Okay, so
yeah.
You can kill and eat the guys in the big circle because they're not in our little
they're not
club.
Human. Because they're not human.
They're not in our human club.
Because they're not human, yeah.
Yeah. So what the next thing is, well, if you're using that, then you can say kind of the same things to justify other really bad things that people, generally speaking, don't agree with. And I would hope that you wouldn't agree with either.
Such as
like
what?
Sexism, racism, whatever. I mean,
no, you can't. You can't. No, that's absurd. That's absurd. No, not club. Humanity.
Okay.
If humanity is the club.
You're not in my species.
You're not. Yeah, exactly. But women are in my species. Gay people are in my species. Different races of people are in my species. So no, I can't discriminate against them because they're all human. Mm-hmm. I hope that makes sense.
Yep, that totally makes sense, and I agree. And but this is the thing that, like, in the old days when people had like institutionalized racism, and to some extent that probably still happens a lot of places, sadly, but when you had legalized like slavery, those were the exact justifications given to say that it was okay.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
You don't think it was okay to own black people in the U.S. like when they did, because they literally said they're unintelligent, they don't speak our language, they're whatever, they're a lower form, whatever. I mean, they used all the same kind of arguments to justify that. What did they use? What did they use?
They called them animals.
Well, yeah.
They called them animals.
and they don't believe in our
And
God and whatever. Like those
and
were the
and the
same kind of.
argument, well, but we both agree that was wrong. And the
Right.
argument against slavery was obviously humanity. That was the argument against slavery, because they're part of our human club, that it was not okay to treat them this way. It was not okay to treat them like animals,
That's
whereas
absolutely
it's
right.
okay to
And
treat animals like animals, and we can't treat people like animals because people are part of our humanity club. So I'm completely consistent. I think my position
so
is
all
logical,
the
and I
all the vegan position is saying that you should extend that same level of compassion to the other non-human animals in the bigger group.
I know, but name the trait is not the argument to do that. It's a nonsense trick.
Mm, okay, I personally don't think you've shown it to be that.
Oh, I've
I
done
mean,
more than that. You're just ideologically possessed, and you won't accept the facts and truth. You haven't been able to defend. You engaged in circular reasoning where you said sentience is why we respect sentience. You completely overlooked humans are of moral value and try to ignore it and argue it away when that's central to the whole name the trait argument. And then you try to get me to concede to eat a retard when humans are of moral value. And now
no,
that I showed you that,
I didn't do that.
but it would be okay within my moral, you know what I'm saying? It would be okay for me to be morally consistent. I'd have to eat a retard, basically.
Well, you wouldn't
And
have to, but it's just like the same justification could be used for it. That's all it's trying to say.
well, okay, fine,
And
but that's not
the
true because humans are of moral value.
and do you actually think that humans are of moral value?
Sure.
And you think they're of moral value just simply because they're humans like you? It's that simple?
Yeah, because we're part of the same human family. I think humans are of moral value. But I mean, it also hinges, we give humans the benefit of the doubt because they're humans. But, if they can't follow the social contract, if they break laws, then obviously that would change. But just right off the bat, we give people the benefit of the doubt because they're human.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think that's good. That's like what I would say too. Um, yeah, I just like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the name the trait. I'm not convinced that you've really like said anything against it, but like I also don't really argue from it. So again, all I've said is that I just wish to extend the same kind of moral consideration that I have for people to animals because I
Why is it
value.
so difficult? Why is it so difficult for vegans to follow logic and just admit that it's just a stupid trick? Because it is. Look,
I'm not
it
sure.
doesn't,
Like, so try to summarize again why you think it's a trick. I mean, or like why it's inconsistent, or like what do you have a problem
because
with?
because what name the trait tries to do is extend human rights to animals, right? And if you use this trait sentience, what you're essentially saying is that the reason why we respect people's right to freedom and life is because they're sentient, when that's absurd. That's not why we respect people, because we throw sentient human beings in prisons, we execute them, we kill them in wars, even though they're sentient. That's not why we respect their right to life. We respect their right to life because they're human, first and foremost, and if they follow the social contract. Secondly, that's why we respect them. It's not because they're sentient.
Well,
Sentience
but
is
I
another.
think you missed something. Sorry, because I didn't say that that's why I have moral value assigned to people. I
But
mean,
what you okay? This is how it works. Let me explain. But name the trait tries to extend human rights to animals. And if you're going to use sentience to argue for animals having the right to freedom or whatever, to live unobstructed by people, right? What
yeah,
you're saying is that that right follows from sentience, right? Isn't that what you're saying? That
yes,
the right
yeah,
that,
I agree
okay,
with
okay,
you on that.
okay,
Yeah.
let me finish. So what, and because you are extending human rights to animals, and from sentience follows this, what you're saying necessarily is that our right to freedom and well-being follows from the fact that we have sentience, which is absurd. That's not why. Because we don't respect sentience if you don't follow the social contract. We don't respect sentience if you're a criminal. We don't respect sentience if we go to war with you. And maybe you would disagree with some of these wars, but you would also say that some wars are just. So even though these people are sentient, we still kill them. So obviously, it's not sentience that gives people the right to life and liberty and well-being. So if you're gonna, so you can't say that it's sentience that's gonna give animals those same rights if you want to extend human rights to animals. Does that make sense?
Okay, so a couple things. One is, for the record, I don't think any war is just. That's just an aside. Second, you've kind of brought in
But you
social
think, okay,
contract.
hold on,
But
hold on
wait,
1 second.
I want to answer your question.
Well, I wanna push back on this because you're gonna agree with me, trust me. But you did say that jailing people is okay sometimes.
Um, Not really, in the sense that
You
we
don't.
do it now. No, I believe that pretty much like people should be like rehabilitated, and I don't think incarcerating them actually helps rehabilitate them.
So when you rehabilitate somebody, you lock them up.
No, no, I'm saying that's not effective.
So you're saying murderers should be running around free as long as they show up for their psychiatric appointment?
It kind of depends, but like maybe, but you're making it sound better than what I kind of envision it. Like if
So
you
what do
look
you
at
envision?
well, if you look at like the prison systems in like Norway and stuff like that, like they are very liberal considering like Western kind of jails. Like
They're still in
they have
prison.
they are still in prison, but they have a lot
Okay,
more
so and you're okay
like
with that?
freedom. Well, yeah, I
You're
mean,
okay with
but they are
so
being
you
rehabilitated too, and they are afforded a lot more freedoms than like what
so
somebody in
you're
the
okay with
U.S. would
their
be enjoying.
freedoms being restricted.
Yes,
So
I
they
am, because
even
we
though
have to take care of the
even
safety
though
of the
they're
people in the community at large.
right,
Yeah,
right, even though they're sentient beings, you're okay with their
right.
freedom being restricted. And earlier in our debate, you said when I talked about prisons, you said you agree with me. Now you seem to be backtracking a little bit, but maybe you're just qualifying your position. But anyway, even
Wait,
though they're
I don't know.
sentient,
What did you say before about prisons that I'm
that
disagreeing on?
I said that humans are of moral value, but if they don't follow the social contract, then we throw them in prison. And you said, yeah, that's how I view the world. When you asked me about if I'm libertarian and so
Yeah,
on and
yeah,
so forth.
because they're impinging on the freedoms of others. So I mean, by
Right,
murdering somebody,
right.
you're obviously doing that, or
But they're still
stealing from
sentient.
somebody, or whatever.
But they're still sentient. They're
So
still
so what you're
sentient.
trying to say is that it's not just the human club; it's also the social contract that people are capable of.
No, no. What I'm saying is that it's not the sentience that guarantees these people their freedom in society
You
and their
said, go
well-being.
ahead. Yeah, and then you said it's because they're human. That's the base. That's the starting line. And when we can go against that is when they break the social contract, and that's when you can disregard the fact that they're sentient and put them in jail. Right? Isn't that what you said?
When they break the social contract or do other things
Right,
that
right, right. Yeah, that's just an example. But then you disregard the fact that they're sentient, and then you put them in jail or whatever the
I
consequence.
don't care that they're sentient ever. I don't care about sentience. You're the one who cares about sentience.
No, no,
I'm
I
not
know that,
concerned.
but you said, but despite the fact that they're sentient, that's why you're saying it's not important to you that they're sentient. It's important to you that they're humans, and then that's why they get afforded the basic rights. But the time they lose the rights is when they cross the social contract like rules,
Yeah.
the laws.
All I'm saying is that sentience is not the reason why we give people moral consideration. Because if there's a guy out there shooting, murdering a bunch of people out in the open, and you have a gun, you're gonna kill that person,
Right,
whether
right,
they're
right. Yeah,
sentient or
yeah,
not.
that's fine.
Right.
Yeah,
So sentience is not why we give people. That's all I'm saying, and I
yeah.
think most
Okay,
people would
so I
agree.
just tried to clarify your position, and I think I've done it, which is that you don't afford them human rights because of sentience. You afford them human rights because they're human. That's like first and
That's why they're
foremost,
called human rights. That's why
right?
they're called
And
human
then
rights.
take away their rights accordingly when they've done something bad, like broken social contract and done something that's like harmful to the other members of the humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And I mean, there's a couple things. So, uh, is this why you think that that animals shouldn't be afforded similar rights of being like left alone or freedoms or whatever, because they don't have the social contract?
Because they're not human.
Okay. But so again, like this doesn't really, um, it doesn't really say anything about name the trait though. Like
Yeah, my trait is humanity. That's the trait that I use. Humanity, even though I don't have to because it's just a stupid trick.
But again, like I've said, the only thing that name the trait is for is to expose to people who maybe haven't thought of these things before to think of the fact that the animals are more like us than they are different, and they have very similar qualities and very similar kind of like ability to feel and think and do, you know, kinds of things like we do, and that to unnecessarily harm them is wrong, because you pretty much, if you use the same justification of why you're doing it to the animal and you applied it to people, you wouldn't accept that. That's all it's trying to do. I don't see why you have an issue with this.
I already explained why I have an issue with the trick. I explained it multiple times because the reason, I don't know why you're unwilling to accept logic, but I already explained it multiple times that it's just a stupid trick because it says humans are of moral value. So you can't just
But
then say that
we're not even disagreeing with the first premise. So you agree with the first premise for different reasons than why, you know, I think. But I mean, not even really, like, you're not arguing that the first premise is wrong. You agree with it. You think
Yeah,
people, like humans, are of moral value.
right, and animals are not the same moral value.
And
They have some moral
all
value.
name the trait is trying to do is that by saying that the trait is humanity itself, that is the same as what somebody in a smaller group. So you had the big circle of the animals, you had the little circle of people, of humans, and within that little circle of humans, you have an even smaller circle of, say, like white humans, or, you know, Asian humans or African humans or whatever humans, and then, you know, they could use the same thing. It's the
No,
same
they
argument.
can't. No,
It's
they
the,
can't.
you can make
No,
the,
they can't. I
but
already debunked this. No, they can't. It's the exact opposite. Actually, you can't start fractionating this humanity into all these different races because that's anti-humanity, right? In order to accept racism, you have to reject humanity
okay,
because the argument
you don't even have to
because
think of
the
races. But
argument
let me say this: you
the
don't even have to
argument.
do it with race.
Oh,
You
let me
can do it.
finish.
You
Let
can
me
include
finish, please.
geographic location. You
Pal,
can
can I
say
finish?
everyone who lives in New York.
Can I finish?
That could be your group.
Can I finish?
Go ahead.
I'd like to be able to finish my point. See, this is why you're not understanding me, is because you don't listen. I know cognitive dissonance is a bitch, but sometimes when you lose, man. Look, my circle is humanity, okay? And you start dividing that circle into races, New Yorkers, or sexes. That's anti-humanity because humanity encompasses whether you're gay, bisexual, you're black or white or whatever, you're all part of humanity. And their argument against racism was speciesism or humanity. In other words, the reason why we debunked racism was to say that we're all part of the same human family. We're all equal. We're
I disagree
different
with you
than these
strongly about
animals.
that.
How do we debunk racism?
I think at the time that racism was like ultimately first kind of like the whole abolitionist movement and things like that. At that time, people still didn't even agree that we were all the same like species. People used to think races were different species.
How do we debunk racism?
I think we debunked racism by just simple like human compassion and realizing that the other person feels and thinks and loves just like we do. I don't think they had the scientific knowledge to even understand that we're in the same species.
So what you're saying is that we weren't compassionate up until 200 years ago. We weren't compassionate.
No, I'm not saying that we weren't. I'm saying that's what we used to ultimately like stop
And we
large
lacked
scale
compassion
slavery.
before that. We lacked compassion before that.
I think it's not just compassion, but I think ultimately anybody who partook in slavery, I think, did lack a certain compassion, because I think regardless of the time or place, I think people deep down inside, their inner morals should have told them that that's wrong.
Look, pal, everybody knows, you could disagree because it's convenient, but everybody knows that the argument against the strong is best, the number one, the most prevailing argument against racism is humanity. We're all part of the same human race.
I
That's
agree
just,
with what you're saying, but I don't think that that's why, uh, like that's what they were using to convince people in, say, like, you know, the northern states of the United States, like before the Civil War.
oh, maybe they played on their heartstrings. I don't know what they did, but the
Well,
logical
I don't
argument,
think people knew like what species were back then.
But the logical argument is that we're all equal, right? That's the logical argument, that we're all the same on some level. We're all equal. Wasn't that the argument?
Well, I
Right.
think a lot of times we're equal in our capacity to feel suffering, and that's why it's wrong to put suffering on other people.
No, that wasn't the argument against slavery. The argument, because you could say, well, we're equal in our capacity to feel great. We're equal in our capacity to live a healthy life. We're equal in our capacity to do all these other things. As soon as you say we're equal, that's what you're really saying. We're equal. That's why racism was debunked, because we're equal, because we're all human, because we're part of this one circle, and we shouldn't be racist, sexist.
It's the other stuff you just said. It's not that we're human. It's because of all the other things you said.
Of course it's because we're human.
Because we can feel pain, because we feel compassion, because we feel like we want.
But all these are human things. All these things, you're just describing humanity.
Those are not
describing human.
Those are found among all animals. All animals feel.
You can't prove that. You can't prove that. You're assuming that.
Have you ever seen a dog and its puppies? Have you ever seen like a cow and its calf?
Yeah, but you can't prove that. You're assuming that. You're assuming that.
Do you see the way they treat their
kids? Yeah. You're not listening to what I'm saying. I'm saying you're assuming this because you're human and you experience these things and you're projecting these things onto animals. I would agree with you that they have them, but you can't prove it. And look.
Well, I think if you agree with me, then I mean, I understand the point of like playing devil's advocate, but what is your point then? If you agree with me that the animals do feel these things.
Well, that's not why we extend human rights to animals, or why we should, is because they are similar to us in some degree. That's not why we should extend human rights to them.
I think it is, and I would love to read you a quote if you don't mind. I can just read it. It's like 2 sentences. It's basically written by 18th century philosopher Jeremy Bentham. He said he compiled enlightenment.
I disagree with that guy. I think he was a terrible person, and I think he got everything wrong. But go ahead.
Okay, I'll just read the quote. It says, "The French have already discovered that the blackness of the skin is no reason why a human being should be abandoned without redress to the caprice of a tormentor. What else is it that should trace the inseparable line? Is it the faculty of reason, or perhaps the faculty of discourse? But a full-grown horse or a dog is beyond comparison a more rational as well as a more conversable animal than an infant of a day, a week, or even a month old. But suppose the case were otherwise, what would it avail? The question is not can they reason nor can they talk, but can they suffer?" And I think that really kind of sums it up, man. Like that's the whole point.
That's an appeal to authority. I don't care what Jeremy Bentham has to say.
I'm not appealing to his authority. I think he summarized an idea very well that
you agree with, and I don't agree with it.
Well, but
and I don't have to, because there's no logical framework.
You don't agree with what we should do with the information, but you agreed with the information that animals.
No, I don't.
Feel. You said you do. You said you literally said just like a minute ago that you do.
Yeah, but I don't agree with everything he said
that your goats do care for their kids.
Yeah, but I don't agree with everything he said. He said some things that were true.
I'm not asking you to agree with everything he said, but I'm saying you agreed with.
Then why are you quoting him? I don't understand why you're quoting him.
I don't care what he has to say. I think he summarized it very well.
That's like, but I don't care.
Okay.
It's not logical what he said.
The basic premise
not logical.
That animals do feel and feel compassion.
Yeah, so you just named the trait. Yeah, he's playing the same name the trait trick. So what? I don't care. Name the trait is a trick. I don't care. I already proved it's a trick. So you reworded name the trait. So what?
I haven't reworded anything.
He did.
I've literally just said that,
but that's where it comes from. I got you to agree
that you look at your own goats and you see that they treat their kids with love, basically. You agree with that?
No, I don't.
You said you did.
Love? No, I never said that.
Okay, compassion.
I wouldn't say that.
What do they do with their kids?
Sometimes they beat up on them.
Do humans do that too?
Okay, is that compassion?
It can be.
Beating up on somebody is compassion?
I mean, there's difference between like a mild spank on the butt versus like beating up like horrifically hurting like a kid.
Two of my bucks, I have 2 bucks. If I let them in the same pasture, one is going to kill the other one. Is that compassion?
That's not its child. We're talking about mother and child. I said your goat.
Father and son. Father and son.
Well, there's again territorial kind of things. It's probably an adult
Right.
goat. That's again different than what I'm
That's
talking
not
about.
compassion.
A child.
But that's what I'm saying.
Human
I don't
adults
consider that compassion.
physically like chastise each other either. That's called a fight. I'm talking about like a small child when they do something like a small slap on the wrist or the butt is different than beating them up. That's all I was trying to
I had a female goat birth three babies. She rejected two of them. Anytime they wanted to drink the milk, she would butt them away. And she only let one of them drink and would butt the other two away. Is that compassion? It looks like there's less compassion there than there's some compassion there.
And what about the people that like, drive their kids off the bus or off the cliff and drown them in the bathtub and whatever? I mean, you're picking like individual like things.
No, I'm not picking anything.
In general,
I'm not picking anything.
Just like people,
you're idealizing.
Exceptions. I'm not idealizing anything.
Of course you are.
I think
you're idealizing animals.
I think you're being.
You don't know anything
dishonest.
about animals.
I know a lot about animals, and I think you're being very dishonest if you're trying to say that animals do not care for their young in very similar ways to humans.
I never said that.
Okay, and why do you think they do that?
I never said that they don't care for their young. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
And just like people. But in general, I'm talking about when they do, which is most of the cases. Why do you think they do that?
Instinct.
Okay. And when they like wait for you to come home and they like go up to you and whatever, they're just doing it because of instinct because they know you're going to feed them or something?
I'm not sure why, but probably, yeah. Okay. We don't know why. We don't know why they do these things. We assume a lot about animals, but we don't really know why they do it. That's the only point I'm making. You're attributing all these feelings and emotions to animals that you don't have any proof for. That's all I'm saying.
I think there's plenty enough proof, like when you see the way that animals respond to each other, when they respond to people, and just I don't even think it's really debatable. Like I think if anybody watches any kind of animal reaction to kind of like a long lost friend, when they come back, they remember things. It goes way beyond any kind of instinct.
Yeah, but you don't know why they're doing that. You're personifying these animals. You're anthropomorphizing them.
I don't have to know why.
I'm not saying you have to know. All I'm saying is that you're talking to somebody who disagrees. What I'm saying is that you're talking to somebody who disagrees, and you're trying to make me believe what you believe. You could believe whatever you want to believe, but you can't make me believe what I don't believe. I don't have any proof that these animals love each other or whatever. Maybe they cuddle up at night because it's cold and they stay warm that way. I mean, yeah, I see similar behaviors as I do in people, but that still doesn't make them people. So what?
If you went to another country where you had no chance of speaking the language because it was just so foreign to you, and you saw the way people behaved, would your answer be humanity is what like accounts for the way they behave towards each other?
Yeah, because their DNA is 99.999% the same as mine. Yeah, I would be. Okay. I'd still be assuming, but I think I'm a lot safer assuming that humans act like other humans do, rather than assuming that these goats or other animals have the same level of cognitive ability as we do. That's preposterous. Clearly they don't.
Nobody has said that they have the same cognitive ability. I haven't said. Well,
that. Love is in part cognitive ability. You have to conceptualize of love in order to feel love. So that's what you're saying. You're saying that they have a cognitive ability.
That animals have empathy. Okay, I mean that.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has. That has definitely been established.
No, we've seen behavior in animals that we interpret as empathy, but it has never been demonstrated that animals feel empathy. Please understand the difference. We assume that or some researchers assume because they have an ulterior motive, but it has never been actually factually proven that they have empathy. That's never been done, and that's just a fact. Just because they act in a way that might be construed as empathetic, that's another thing.
I would definitely argue with that. I think there is absolutely scientific research that shows that animals do have empathy.
Yeah, but by that same token, I could say plants have empathy. But then you're going to say,
and you agree.
Then you're going to say they need a. But then you're going to have.
you agreed at the beginning that you said you don't think plants have sentience either.
But then you're going to say, show me a brain and a nervous system, right? If I say plants feel empathy. Right?
Yes, and you agreed that they don't
Right.
have
So,
sentience.
I'm telling you, when a human shows empathy to another human, there are certain things that happen in the brain. There are certain electrical impulses, and we could biomechanically map that, okay? And unless you could map the same sort of thing in a rat, or whatever these empathy studies were, I believe they were rats, unless you could do the same thing that demonstrate these same mechanisms at work, you can't say that animals feel empathy. You could interpret that behavior as empathy, but you're just interpreting their behavior because you're anthropomorphizing rats. And look, plants, for example, when little seedlings in the forest, I think sequoia trees do this, when they're little and they can't reach enough light to be able to photosynthesize and create enough energy, the mother plants will feed them with their roots, right? They will provide nutrition to these little. Is that empathy? I could say that's empathy, right? Couldn't I?
I wouldn't say it's empathy. I mean, there's
why not?
Well, because it's like
you would say it's instinct.
No, I wouldn't say it's instinct. I would say to have instinct, you need to have like a brain and central nervous system. I think it's
no, you don't.
Like it's
no, you don't actually. You don't actually. That's not correct.
I think you do.
Plants have instinct. No,
they
plants have
respond to stimuli, either chemically or heat or whatever, like thermal or photo.
So what are they responding to when they do that?
I mean, the chemical stimulus of being able to detect that it's their own offspring versus the plant of another, the seedling from another tree.
Our emotions, and feelings are all chemical based. Our emotions and feelings are chemical based too. So you just proved my point. If it's chemicals for us,
we have a central nervous system to process those chemical and physical receptors. So we have nerve endings that process those things. They are just responding either chemically or thermally to stimuli. There is no brain and central nervous system to actually do that processing. And even you at the beginning said that they are not sentient.
I'm not saying they're sentient. I'm just saying you're drawing these conclusions that from rats having empathy that could be drawn from plants just the same.
I'm not talking about rats. Anyway, listen, I really got to get going pretty soon. I would really love to just wrap up with just a couple.
No, that's fine. I just hope that you stop using the stupid name the trait trick if you have any intellectual integrity, because the whole thing is nonsense.
Like I said, I've never used it myself, so I just think it's funny that you put it that way. But
well, I wish you would concede that it's nonsense, because I debunked it at least 3 different times on 3 different levels, and you just seem to have a very difficult time admitting that it's BS, because it is BS.
I think you're missing the point of what name the trait is. But anyway, it's up to the viewers to decide for themselves, who
the vegan viewers. Vegan viewers.
you post this video on your channel after, and you can see whether people agree with you or not. It doesn't matter. I think most of your viewers will agree with you, and most of my viewers.
That's fine. That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I wanted to say thank you for the enlightening conversation. I had a lot of fun. I know we get heated, but that's what this is about. And sorry I took up so much of your time. I hadn't.
No worries. It's been good. I had a fun time too. So thanks for your time as well. And we'll probably do another one of these. I don't know. We'll figure out something else to talk about. I watched your video about the Okinawa diet. I think that could be an interesting topic if you're up for it later.
Sure.
Yeah. You made some really good points there. I just want to say. So
right on.
We can talk about that. Cool, man.
All right. Well, take it easy.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it, and hope everybody in the in the live stream had fun. I think there were a lot of comments. Again, sorry I don't usually get too much time to run through these, but yeah, just appreciate everybody being on, and hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Carneval.